Hey, I'm Tanya, a 37-year-old woman happily married to the love of my life, Jim. Let me tell you a story about how my in-laws, Nina and Hank, underestimated me and my amazing parents, and how we turned the tables on them in the most satisfying way possible. My family had money, but we didn't show it off. We believed in working hard and staying humble. My parents taught me that money shouldn't be relied upon. It's more important to be determined and have good qualities. These lessons helped me when dealing with Jim's family, especially his mom, Nina. At first, Nina treated me badly and always made mean comments at my expense. But I stayed strong and confident because I knew my value wasn't just about money. I loved Jim a lot and wanted to prove that I deserved his love, no matter how much money I had. One time, however, I got overwhelmed by Nina's remarks and confided in Jim about it. "I need to talk to you about something," I said. "What's going on, darling? Is everything okay?" Jim asked. "It's just that I feel upset with how your mom treats me. It's like she thinks I'm not good enough because I don't come from wealth." I was waiting for this to come up, Jim admitted. If I'm being completely honest, my mom has this strange way of trying to make sure I find the right girlfriend. She's overprotective and doesn't want anyone using me for my money. She always insisted on me finding someone with the same social standing as us. But believe me, I don't care about that stuff. It's just not fair. Shouldn't she see me for who I am, not how much money I come from? Love should be about understanding, not wealth. I completely agree. Love should be about understanding. My mom is stubborn, but I'm holding out hope that she'll change. "Don't worry about a word," she says. "She'll never change how I feel and think about you, my darling. I love you no matter what she thinks." "I love you too, baby. You're the only reason I'm staying." It's not easy to deal with her. I hope she realizes our love is real, not about money. I felt a mix of relief, love, and a tinge of sadness. I was relieved that Jim understood my frustrations and stood by my side. His unwavering support gave me strength. Yet there was a hint of sadness knowing that his mother's judgment and expectations might continue to affect our relationship. Nina didn't just treat me badly, she also looked down on my parents. When our families met to plan the wedding at Jim and my house, Nina and Hank kept saying mean things about my parents. They made rude comments about where my parents came from and acted like they were better than them. It made me and Jim mad, but my parents handled it well. Even though Nina and Hank tried to put my parents down, they stayed calm and strong. They didn't let Nina and Hank's words bother them. They stayed cool and didn't act mean back. Nina and Hank thought my parents were being distant and acting better than them, which made Jim's parents dislike my parents even more. They thought my parents were too proud and snobby. At the wedding itself, Nina tried to strike up a conversation with my mother, Rita. "Oh, Rita, you look lovely," Nina said. "Thank you, Nina. So do you," my mother replied. "Your daughter is quite lucky, isn't she?" Nina continued. "That she is. She's marrying the man she loves, and I'm so happy for her," my mother said. "Of course, marrying a rich man like Jim must be such a dream come true for her. Are you jealous?" "Jealous? Why would I be? Wealth doesn't define a person. It's not something I care about." "Of course, when you don't have a lot of money, you have to focus on personality, right? I hope you're secretly jealous of Tanya. No need to hide it. Admit it. I won't tell anyone. I promise." "I have no reason to be jealous, Nina. What matters to me is that my daughter is marrying a man who will always stand by her side, even if it's against his disrespectful parents." In that moment, my mother showed Nana what true class and strength looked like, and I couldn't have been prouder. That's something to be proud of. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other things to attend to," Rita said calmly. Nana felt shocked and embarrassed as Rita confidently walked away, leaving her at a loss for words. This encounter only deepened Nana's resentment towards Rita, fueling her dislike for my mother even more. After we got married, I decided to tell Jim about my family's wealth. I was nervous about how he would react, so I sat him down one night and told him everything. "Is everything okay, darling? Why so serious?" Jim asked. "Okay, so I've kind of been keeping a huge secret from you," I confessed. "Oh, what is it?" "Well, I'm actually from a similar background as you." "What do you mean?" "My dad is the highest chairman of a big company in the same industry as your dad." "Wait, what? Are you serious?" I know it's surprising. My parents always taught me to be humble and not to rely on our wealth, so I didn't think it was necessary to mention it. "I can't believe you never told me about this before." I mean, it wouldn't have changed anything, and it still doesn't. It's just shocking. Well, yeah. I figured you'd find out one way or another. And I would rather you find out from me right now than later by someone else. Once the surprise sank in, Jim burst out laughing. I was confused at first, not sure why he found it so funny. I don't get it. Why are you laughing? I asked. It's just so ironic, darling. I'm laughing because of how my parents treated you when we were dating. If they had known about your family's wealth, they would have treated you like royalty. It's really stupid, isn't it? I never understood why your parents needed to know about it to treat me with respect. Exactly. I love you for who you are, not for your family's wealth. You've always been there for me, and that's what matters. We've built our relationship on trust and support, not material possessions. Laughing together brought us even closer. We realized that our love went beyond money and status. We were grateful for each other's love and support, which meant more than any amount of money. It was a special moment for us, understanding that our connection was based on genuine feelings and shared values, not just superficial things. Over the years, Jim and I grew even closer in our relationship. We both landed high-ranking, well-paying jobs that provided us with a comfortable and happy life. We had to move to a different state because of work, but it also served as a way to distance ourselves from Jim's toxic parents. Whenever we returned to our home state, we made sure to meet Jim's parents and my parents separately. I couldn't bear to see my parents being talked down to by Nina and Hank. Protecting my parents' dignity was important to me, so we took steps to ensure they were spared from any more of their condescending remarks. One day, my mom, Rita, called with great news. She said she was organizing a big charity event next month and asked if Jim and I would come. I was super excited and said yes right away. My mom was known for throwing awesome parties, and I couldn't wait to be part of this special event. It had been a while since she organized something, and I knew it would be a big hit. A few days later, Jim's mom, Nina, called him. She told him about the same charity event and insisted that we had to be there. Little did she know that we were already invited by my parents. Jim didn't say anything and just agreed to his mom's request. We found it funny how things worked out. It seemed like fate brought both our families to the same event without them knowing. As the days went by, Jim and I felt a mix of excitement and curiosity. We wondered what would happen when our families finally met at the event. We knew there was tension between them, but we hoped this could be a chance for them to put their differences aside and enjoy themselves. Despite the potential for drama, I was determined to make the most of the event and support my mom's charity. I focused on the positive and got ready for a special night filled with elegance, helping others, and hopefully a better understanding between our families. The next few weeks flew by, and before we knew it, Jim and I were boarding our flights back home. When we arrived, Nina and Hank were there to greet us at the airport. Since I was earning a similar amount as Jim, Nina started treating me a little better. It wasn't that she was so nice to me, but she made fewer mean comments. I didn't like that it took me having a high-paying job for her to show some respect, but I was relieved not to deal with her usual remarks. That night, Jim and I stayed at his parents' house. We talked about how Nina and Hank would find out about my parents' wealth the next day. I can't believe tomorrow is the day your parents will finally find out about my family's wealth. I'm kind of nervous about how your parents will react, to be honest, I admitted. Yeah, it's going to be quite a revelation for them. I'm looking forward to seeing their reaction and confronting them about their behavior, Jim said. Me too. It's about time they realize that money doesn't define a person's worth. I'm glad you're standing up for me. You know I'll always have your back, darling. I love you. We're in this together. I love you too, babe. I can't wait to see their faces when they learn the truth. It's going to be an interesting day, that's for sure. We need to get as much sleep as we can. We're going to need it. Oh, absolutely. Good night, my love. The next evening, everyone got dressed up in fancy clothes for the event. Of course, Nina had to make a mean comment about my dress. But Jim stood up for me and told his mom that she had no right to say such things to his wife. When we arrived at the venue, I was amazed by how beautiful it looked. I made a mental note to compliment my mom when I saw her for organizing such a wonderful event. Nina and Hank went off to socialize with other people. Nina found her friend Maddie, and together they whispered and laughed while gossiping about everyone they saw. I saw my mother, Rita, from a distance and my heart filled with joy. I quickly made my way over to her. Nina, wearing a scowl, followed behind me with Maddie trailing alongside her. I wanted to compliment my mother on her hard work organizing the event, but before I could even speak, Nina rudely questioned why my mom was there. "What are you doing here, Rita? This event is only for rich people," Nina sneered. "Well, I am part of the organizing team for this event," my mother replied calmly. "Oh, and what exactly do you do?" "I doubt it's anything important," Nina retorted. "Nina, please stop." "That's enough," I intervened. "Well, if you don't do your job well, I'll make sure to complain to your boss and get you fired," Nina threatened. "Nina, shut up. What is your problem?" Maddie snapped. "Rita is the hostess for the entire party, Nina," Maddie continued. "What, her? The hostess? Have you lost your mind or something?" Nina scoffed. "Rita's husband is in a very high position, don't you know? She's the wife of the chairman of the company hosting the event. You've just made a fool of yourself," Maddie explained. "Whoa, what? Oh, I didn't know. Enjoy the party, Nana," I said, unable to hide my satisfaction. I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of triumph as I witnessed Nina's shock. Without saying a word, I left with my mom, feeling victorious and content. As we walked away from Nina, I couldn't help but smile. The night had only just begun, and it was already unforgettable. As the evening continued, I couldn't contain my excitement. I approached my mom with a smile. "Mom, I have to say, this place looks amazing. And the way you handled Nina's mean comments, you were incredible." "Thank you, sweetheart. But that's not all. I've got something else planned," my mom replied with a twinkle in her eye. "Really? What do you mean?" I asked, intrigued. "Well, your dad and I have grown tired of how Jim's parents treat us. So we came up with a little plan. Your dad is going to introduce himself to Hank in the most spectacular way ever. They need to know that having a bit more money doesn't make them royalty, am I right?" she said with a mischievous grin. "I'm beyond curious about your plan. What do you have in mind?" I asked eagerly. "Just wait and see, my dear. We're going to make a statement and give them payback for the way they treated us. I'm a bit scared about what you've planned, but at the same time, you're right. They need to be put in their place." "I can't wait to see what happens," I replied, feeling a mix of anticipation and pride. Hearing my mom's words made me even more curious and eager to see what would happen next. I trusted her instincts and knew she had something clever planned. We were tired of being looked down on, and it was time to stand up for ourselves. I felt a surge of pride imagining my parents taking charge and proving to Nina and Hank that everyone deserves respect, regardless of their wealth. As the event continued, my excitement grew. This wasn't just a charity gathering. There was also an award ceremony to recognize the most generous and hard-working companies. Surprisingly, Hank's company was a top contender for the award, which made him even more arrogant, not realizing that my father Aaron held the deciding vote. When it was Aaron's turn to present the award, he stepped up and delivered a speech that caught everyone's attention. He talked about his conversations with the CEOs of various companies and mentioned one CEO's disrespectful attitude towards those who weren't as successful. Aaron couldn't support someone who treated others poorly, so he announced that the runner of company would receive the award instead. The crowd reacted with a mix of cheers and whispers. All eyes turned to Hank and Nina, who looked shocked and humiliated. Their arrogance had been exposed, and people could see the truth about their behavior. It was evident that wealth and status shouldn't be an excuse to treat others with disrespect. Feeling embarrassed, Hank and Nina decided to leave the event early. They couldn't face the crowd knowing that their true nature had been revealed. Meanwhile, Jim and I stayed until the end, proud of my parents for taking a stand against the belittling behavior. Upon returning to Nina and Hank's place, they immediately started shouting at me, demanding to know why I hadn't disclosed my parents' status. "Why didn't you tell us about your parents' status, Tanya? How dare you keep that from us?" Nina fumed. "I don't see why my parents' status matters to you," I replied calmly. "Of course it matters. You made us look like fools," she snapped. "I didn't do that at all. Your mentality did that," I responded firmly. "You're just trying to outshine us, aren't you? You want to show us how much higher you are. I told you, Jim, she was a waste of time. Look at how she's embarrassed your poor parents," Nina ranted. "That's enough, Mum. Tanya has done nothing wrong. Her family's wealth doesn't change who she is, and it certainly doesn't change how I feel about her. I will not allow you to belittle me or my family," Jim said, standing up for me. Well, if you think you can rob us of our position, you're mistaken, Nina huffed. We're not interested in taking anything from you, Mum. We're interested in being treated with respect and dignity. If you can't do that, then we won't stay here, Jim declared. At that moment, Jim and I decided that we had endured enough of their disrespect. We packed our bags and headed straight to my parents' house, seeking a loving and respectful environment where our value wasn't based on material possessions. As we settled into my parents' home, a sense of relief washed over us. We were greeted with open arms and genuine warmth. My parents never used their wealth against us. Instead, they showered us with love and acceptance. It was in their presence that we truly felt at home. Ultimately, our love triumphed over the toxic environment created by Nina and Hank. We realized that true happiness and fulfillment come from being surrounded by people who appreciate and uplift us, rather than those who seek to demean and belittle us. We embarked on a new chapter, leaving behind negativity and embracing the love and respect we always deserved. So there you have it, the tale of how my amazing parents turned the tables on my condescending in-laws. Our love flourished, and we found happiness and success together, free from the judgment and snobbery of others. Remember, it's not about wealth or status, it's about the love and support we give to one another. And sometimes, a little taste of sweet revenge can make the journey even more satisfying.
I was supposed to have pledged a lifetime of love to become husband and wife, but my marital life with David became a hell for me. His parents doted on him, and he prioritized them over me, making unreasonable demands. I refused to let them ruin my life. To punish everyone, I concocted a surprise. My name is Alyssa, and I'm 29 years old. I've been married to David for a year now. We work at the same company and often collaborate on projects. Although I don't have a college degree, I've been with the company longer and have more experience than him. Despite being a high school graduate, my good sales performance has earned me a decent salary, as our company values ability over academic background. David, who is capable and highly trusted by his colleagues, was a boyfriend I could be proud of. I fell for him and gladly accepted his proposal, and we happily became a married couple. But then my in-laws began to interfere in our relationship. One day, while visiting their house, my mother-in-law suddenly said to David, "Hey David, are you really okay with marrying Alyssa? You've always been good at both studying and sports, haven't you? Yet you chose someone like Alyssa." My father-in-law nodded in agreement. "Yeah, at first glance. She seems like an average young woman with nothing special about her." David responded, "It's fine. I love Alyssa." But my mother-in-law gave me a side glance that said otherwise. I felt humiliated but kept my composure to maintain a peaceful marital life, avoiding conflict with my in-laws as much as possible. On another occasion, my in-laws started complaining in front of me. "Hey David, are you really okay with your current workplace? Isn't it a place where even high school graduates like Alyssa can work?" David replied, "The pay is good, and I have good colleagues." His parents continued, "You're smart. There must be many other good jobs out there." I seethed inside but stayed silent, believing that responding would mean losing. I did my job well and sometimes even earned more than David. It was clear I didn't have a good impression of my in-laws, who judged based on academic background or appearance. However, they didn't physically bully me, and I didn't suffer much direct harm. David knew from the start that I was a high school graduate, and he always told me, "I love everything about Alyssa." I took pride in my achievements at a company that valued ability over academic background, and I believed David was on my side. However, after a while, an incident broke out. Out of nowhere, David began speaking of something unbelievable. "Hey, I've been thinking. I decided to switch to a different job." "Wait, what? What are you talking about all of a sudden?" I asked, stunned. "I was talking to my parents and realized our company even hires high school grads like you, Alyssa," David said. "I have a college degree, so there must be a better job out there for me." "Are you serious? You're insulting both me and the company," I retorted. "But it's true, isn't it? There's no need for me to work at a job that even a high school graduate can do. Plus, My mom said she could introduce me to a job through someone she knows. Stop it. We are blessed with a good work environment, and now you're saying something like this. You're nagging. I finally realized I'm not someone who should be stuck in a place like this. It was clear his parents had influenced him, and he convinced himself that he was too good for our company. The very next day, without discussing it with me, he submitted his resignation and left the company. Only a year into our marriage, my husband had quit the job where we met, without a second thought. He switched to a factory job his mother arranged, where his salary dropped to about half of what it was. The only advantage was that it was close to home, making commuting easier. About a week after starting the new job, he began to complain. That guy, even though he never went past middle school, has the nerve to tell me what to do, David said, scattering his clothes about. Wait, why are you so angry? If you make such a loud noise, it's going to bother the neighbors. I tried to calm him. Shut up. Why do I, a university graduate, have to be bossed around by a low-level boss who's just a middle school graduate? You just started there. It can't be helped. He's your boss, right? I don't care. He can't even study, but he has the nerve to boss me around. Damn it. Who's the real problem here? What can a newcomer do without instructions from your boss? You chose to switch jobs, so bear with it a little. I know that already. Would he be able to continue at his current workplace? How long could he endure the situation? My attempts to soothe him only worsened his mood. Every day became a struggle to get him to work. My doubts were confirmed when he caused a major issue at the factory. You broke the factory equipment, I exclaimed, shocked. My husband slammed his hand on the table. It's not my fault. It's that damn boss who pissed me off. But that doesn't mean you should break the factory equipment. That's absolutely unacceptable. What were you thinking? I had no choice. That guy was bossing me around even though I'm a university graduate. His boss, who had only graduated from middle school, had criticized David for not working seriously. In response, David insulted his boss's academic qualifications. The fault was clearly with David, so everyone sided with the boss. Enraged, David went into a violent rage, damaging part of the conveyor belt and stopping the production line. This led to his immediate firing and a large claim for damages. Since it was a factory his parents had introduced, they had to pay the damages as well. As a result, David lost all his savings, and even his parents' retirement fund seemed to vanish instantly. My parents are struggling right now, but they're moving into this apartment next week, David said. I let out an absurd gasp of surprise. Living together. I never heard about this, I protested. You're my wife, right? Just listen and keep quiet. This is a done deal, that it. With those words, David left the room, slamming the door. A few days later, my in-laws actually moved into our home. I thought it was a joke, but it became my harsh reality. Living together was absolutely impossible, so I confronted them directly. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, living together is a problem. Shut up. It's your fault our son couldn't make it at the factory, my father-in-law snapped. That's right. You neglected David's mental care, didn't you? Added my mother-in-law. Wait a minute. How is this my fault? I asked, bewildered. Can't you shut up? Our life is a mess because of you, they continued. That's right. If you had done things right, this wouldn't have happened. It's all your fault, so living together is natural, right? The logic is all messed up. Living together is impossible. Shut up. Our home was rented, and we've already terminated the lease. There's nowhere else to go, my father-in-law said. That's right. We have nowhere else to go other than here, echoed my mother-in-law. Despite moving in without permission, my in-laws had a lot to say. Furthermore, David began to insult me, egged on by his parents. Hey, Alyssa, I married you. You should be happy to be married to someone as excellent as me, shouldn't you? Forget about that. Can't you start looking for a job soon? It's hard on the household finances now that we're living together. What did you say? You're cheeky for a wife. Supporting your husband is a wife's duty. And supporting your husband's family is also a wife's duty, right? I'm getting sick of you spouting nonsense as if it makes sense, I muttered. Neither David nor my in-laws helped with household chores at all. I had a job too, so I couldn't make elaborate meals, and the cleaning inevitably got neglected, no matter what they said. I kept a cool attitude, saying, because it's hard on the household finances. If they weren't happy with it, they, who caused the situation, should do it. I maintained this attitude for several days until one day, David finally vented his frustration. Hey, what's with your attitude? You're lacking respect for me and my parents. Enough already. I work every day and do all the housework on top of that. You don't help at all but complain a lot. Huh? What's with that tone of voice? You don't seem to understand your place, do you? With that, David shoved divorce papers in my face. He had even kindly signed them. What is this? Can't you see? It's a divorce paper. Even a high school graduate can understand that, right? Are you serious? Of course. If you have complaints about me and my parents, then we're getting a divorce. Staring at the divorce papers, David spoke with a triumphant look. Let me tell you, even if you throw it away, it's useless. I have more prepared. Understand? If you don't want to be divorced, listen to what I say, you stupid high school graduate wife. In that moment, my rage burst forth. I couldn't stand to be with these people anymore. Since he went to the trouble of preparing it, I'd put it to good use. Clutching the divorce papers, I began to plot my revenge. First, I recorded the numerous insults from my husband and in-laws on a voice recorder. When my belongings were deliberately broken, I made sure to document that as evidence. By this time, David had started working odd jobs, but none of them lasted even a week. It was as if he had given up on our family. One day, as soon as David came home, he announced, "Oh man, I quit this job too because it was too boring." Huh, again? You have no right to complain to me, right? Yeah, Dad, Mom. My in-laws just nodded with smiles. This was a usual occurrence, but on this day, my father-in-law delivered the final blow. Speaking of which, I've quit too, David's father announced. What? Father-in-law? What are you talking about? That's what I'm saying. I've quit my job. I'm planning to live off you, Alyssa. Wait, what? You see, my son is too brilliant and prideful to work under those who only graduated middle or high school. We're counting on you, Alyssa, a high school graduate, to work hard. Yeah, let's count on our lowly educated Alyssa to work hard, right, dear? What were they even saying? They intended to live off not their son, but their daughter-in-law. I couldn't stand it any longer. With my father-in-law and David's simultaneous resignation, I knew there was no point in spending any more time with this family. I finally decided to put all my plans into action. The first thing I did was sign a contract for a new apartment. It wasn't for all of us to move in, of course. It was a new place for me alone. However, I needed time to move without my husband and in-laws noticing, so I gifted them a 5-day trip to give me time to pack. Upon receiving the trip tickets, my mother-in-law was thrilled. A trip? Oh, Alyssa, you do have a knack for these things every once in a while. I owe a lot to you all, I replied with a forced smile. But are you sure, Alyssa? You can come with us if you like. No, I have work. Please enjoy yourselves without any interruptions. Oh, really? Well, then we'll take you up on your offer and have a blast, she exclaimed. When the three left for their trip in high spirits, I carried out my planned move. During this time, I shipped my husband and in-laws' belongings to a weekly apartment I had booked and canceled the lease on our current apartment. I bore all these expenses. It was a painful outlay, but I considered it a necessary expense for my revenge. A few days later, my husband, who must have returned from the trip, called me. Hey, what the hell is going on? I can't unlock the door. Smirking at the sound of my husband's frantic voice, I calmly responded, I suppose I've already canceled that apartment. What? Canceled? What are you talking about? Explain properly. For now, I've stored all of our belongings in a weekly apartment nearby. Feel free to do as you wish from there. What? What does that mean? You're always doing as you please. If you get too cocky, you'll pay for it later. Are you threatening me? Should I call the police? I asked, maintaining my composure. "Dan it!" My husband cursed. "How dare you, my foolish wife?" "Oh, I'm not your wife anymore." I dropped the bombshell. "What?" "To prevent any legal issues later, I've already completed the divorce proceedings." "What? Such a selfish act. You think it's acceptable." Taking a deep breath, I spoke firmly into my phone. "Sorry, but I don't need your permission. You've made fun of me for being a high school graduate long enough, and now you've quit your jobs to become dependent on me. I'm done with you. Enjoy your family life without me." "Hey, you must be kidding. I didn't really mean to divorce. Why should I listen to you at this point? We're strangers now. I don't care what happens to you at all. Please wait. You've enjoyed looking down on people, haven't you? I can easily imagine your struggles, and it makes me laugh. Go as low as you can with your family, you trash," I said, and promptly hung up the phone. After that, David kept badgering me with phone calls, but I ignored them all. Later, David and my in-laws caused a ruckus at the entrance of the apartment building, dramatically damaging part of the mailbox, which ended up becoming a police matter. They were taken away and ultimately asked to pay for the damages to the mailbox, adding to their debts. Truly, they are a hopeless family. The lease for the weekly apartment where I had set their belongings is about to expire. Since they do not know my new address, they can't rely on me. I can't help but wonder how David, who quit his job at the same time as his father, and his stay-at-home mother are going to survive from here on out. To make matters worse, my in-laws have even canceled the lease on their rented family home. I can almost see them sinking into a bottomless swamp. I can't help but admire my well-executed plan. I don't know how they're going to survive from here on out, and frankly, I don't care. But it's clear their future isn't bright. They brought this upon themselves. On the other hand, I am living carefree in my new home alone. Being able to spend my time leisurely without anyone bothering me is the ultimate bliss. For the time being, I don't think I'll be living with anyone else. From now on, I plan to thoroughly enjoy my time free of any worries.
I'm Verity, 32, and I had been living with my husband of 5 years, Bernard, when everything started to fall apart. Initially, things were wonderful between us, but that changed once Bernard got a promotion. He became cocky and arrogant, and I noticed him pulling away from me. I confided in my mother-in-law, whom I trust deeply, about the situation. "I really don't know what's wrong with him," I said. "Have you tried talking to him about it?" she asked. "Yes, many times, but he always brushes it off and acts like everything's fine. When I suggest stricter measures like going to a couples counselor, he gets really angry." Oh goodness, that doesn't sound like my precious Bernard. Maybe because you coddle him too much and those rose-colored glasses prevent you from seeing the truth, I thought but didn't say out loud. Things continued to deteriorate after his promotion. A few months of enduring his insufferable behavior led to a shocking discovery. One day, while cleaning the bedroom, I noticed Bernard's phone dangerously close to the edge of the bedside table. As I moved it, a text from someone named Pizza Hut popped up. Curious, I opened the message and found a series of horrifying texts and inappropriate pictures. Bernard was cheating on me. Overwhelmed, I heard heavy footsteps approaching. I quickly locked the phone and put it back. Bernard entered the room. "Verity, where the hell are my socks?" "They're here, darling." "I was just tidying up," I replied, trying to keep my composure. "Why do you look like you've just seen a monster?" Because in that moment, I had. The man standing in front of me was no longer my sweet Bernard, but an unrecognizable beast who had shattered my life. Too weak to confront him, I muttered something about period cramps, and he left. That night, I sobbed into my pillow, my cheating husband sleeping peacefully beside me. Though deeply saddened, I was also enraged. How could he cheat on me after everything? I held on to this anger and decided to expose him. Early the next morning, before Bernard woke up, I gathered all the evidence I needed from his phone. His mistress's name was Rita. I sent everything to my phone, put his phone back, and waited for his mother, Deborah, to arrive. Deborah arrived shortly after Bernard left for work. When I showed her the evidence, she was as horrified and disgusted as I had been. After a moment of shock, she spoke up. "We need to do something about this. He's absolutely lost it. I'm so hurt, Deborah. I know, my dear, but we'll get through this. I'll call him right now. Deborah called Bernard and put him on speaker. Bernard, this better be some sick prank, because if any of this is true, I don't know how I will look you in the face again. Mom, slow down. What are you talking about? Who the hell is Rita? The silence that followed confirmed everything. He had been cheating on me for quite a while. You better get back home right this instant. We need to discuss this face to face. Deborah hung up, and for the next 30 minutes I was inconsolable. Bernard finally arrived home, bringing Rita with him. What is the meaning of this? Is this the wench? Don't call her that, Mom. I love her. What'd you just say? Yes, Verity, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but now is as good a time as any. I am in love with Rita. She makes me happy. I've realized I am at a higher status than my past life. To put it lightly, you're like the older version of a gaming console, and Rita is like the 5 pounds. Bernard, what are you saying? Do you know what you've put Verity through? And you, how dare you get with a married man? Have you no shame? Well, Mom, I believe that we're soulmates, Rita declared. He's in love with me, and I'm in love with him. We're going to start a family together. Oh, so you think you're going to change this man? Newsflash, honey. A cheater will always be a cheater. Based on what he's just said, he will always be searching for something bigger, better, and newer. You're not special, sweetie. Take my advice and leave now before things get worse. You're young, you still have your life ahead of you. Don't tie yourself to a man like this. Enough. Bernard interrupted. I know you're hurt, Verity, but it's not my fault you let yourself go. You have to understand, as a man I have needs, and Rita fulfills them. I guess this all goes without saying, but I want a divorce. As if my heart couldn't shatter anymore, it miraculously did. I was too stunned to respond. I started to zone out of this dreadful situation, but I could hear barely audible shouting between Deborah and Bernard in the background. Amid the chaos, my phone buzzed with a text from my family lawyer. A great uncle of mine had recently passed away, and part of his will indicated that once the inheritance was properly divided among the appropriate individuals, the actual amount would be disclosed to the recipients. Uncle Henry had always been dramatic, even in death. The text read, Dear Verity, as always, I hope you're well. As you know, your great Uncle Henry has left some inheritance money for you, but unfortunately, it's going to take a bit longer than expected to process the proper funds. Some of your family members are arguing about who gets to keep what. Please call for further clarification if needed. Take care. Knowing my crazy and toxic family, I highly doubted there'd be any money left for me. I was always last place, and the same rang true for my failed marriage. I zoned back in to hear more commotion. Verity, are you even listening? Deborah asked, exasperated. What is there to listen to? Bernard has shown us who he is, right? He doesn't want to be with me anymore, right? That's that. I can't fight for someone who won't fight for me, for us. But I will say this, Bernard. By the time your karma is finished with you, you will wish you'd never been born. I'm done here. With that, I gathered up whatever strength I had left, went to my room to pack some of my things, and walked out the front door. As I was leaving, Deborah called after me, assuring me that everything would be fixed. Bless her heart, she still believed that part of her sweet baby boy was still alive. But all I saw was a hollow shell of a man. For the next couple of weeks, I rented cheap motel rooms while Bernard began processing the divorce papers. He had friends who could help speed up the process. He acknowledged that this was hard for me and wanted to expedite things so that I didn't have to suffer any longer. Sounded to me like a guilty conscience. By this point, I was so drained I had cried all my tears. Approximately 6 months after the debacle, Bernard and I were officially divorced. Surprisingly, the process was relatively smooth because we were agreeable about most things. Bernard, being the selfish person he was, wanted to keep most of his money, knowing I had nothing to my name as a housewife. However, I didn't desire any of that money because it had turned him into such a selfish and evil man. Well, I guess that settles it then. It was nice knowing you, Verity. I hope you take care of yourself, Bernard said with an air of finality. I hope you rot in hell where you belong. I have no desire to keep in contact with you, so please refrain from doing so. Have the day you think you deserve, I retorted, stomping off. I was still jaded and hurting, but I was picking myself back up again. While I was still legally married to Bernard, I had used the money in our shared account to kickstart a small business I had always dreamed of, a little cafe that I began to rent. It was a way for me to make money since I knew I would be getting little to nothing from the divorce settlement. As I walked to my apartment complex, which I had started renting shortly after launching the business, I received an email from George, my family lawyer. I was very confused by what I read. Dear Verity, my apologies once again for the awful marital situation you're going through. But I have some good news to share with you. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. 3 hours later, George and I met at my quaint little cafe to discuss the important news he couldn't tell me over the phone. Hello, George. I hope you're well. Hey, Verity. I can tell you're hurting, so I won't take up much of your time. Let me cut to the chase. You've got the inheritance. What? What did you say? You heard me right. You've got the inheritance. I'm so sorry it took so long to finalize. Your great Uncle Henry left most of the money to you. Here's a letter from him that you need to read now that all the conditions have been met. The letter read as follows. My dear Verity, I know life has been unkind to you. You have always been put in last place by both friends and family, but I have decided that enough is enough. No more will you be subject to pain and humiliation. Please accept this inheritance money and use it to ameliorate your life in the best way you can. Knowing your toxic family members, they most likely won't be happy with the distribution of funds. But I don't care. All I care about is your health and well-being. If you're reading this now, you know that all the money you are about to receive is wholly yours. You won't have to go through any troubles or negotiations with anyone. I wanted to exempt you from this messy process, which is why you are receiving this money now. I know you will do wonderful things. All my love, your great Uncle Henry. By the time I finished reading the letter, I was sobbing. Some customers got up and left due to the scene I was making, but I didn't care. I was overwhelmed with joy. It was so refreshing to hear good news after months of crying and wondering why all of this had happened to me. How much is it? I asked, still shaking with emotion. It's $170,000, George replied. I gasped. That was a lot of money, more than enough to help me continue to grow and expand my business. Finally, things were looking up. I thanked George profusely for his loyalty and kindness, and he went on his way. That night, I called Deborah to tell her everything. You said the amount is how much? She asked, disbelief evident in her voice. Yep, you heard me right, Deborah. We were still keeping in touch despite everything. I trusted her, at least for a while, but what she did next was completely deplorable. I woke up the next morning to a slew of angry texts from none other than Bernard. Less than 24 hours after telling him not to contact me again, here he was, contacting me. Against my better judgment, we decided to meet up to discuss whatever it was that was pressing him. A part of me still had hopes that things would change. We met at my cafe. So this is the infamous cafe. It's cute, I guess, Bernard remarked, looking around with a disdainful air. What do you want, Bernard? Haven't you taken enough from me? Let's cut to the chase. Half of that money is mine. What? My mom told me everything. She told me about the inheritance money that finally came. Talk about good timing, am I right? But anyways, we need that money. You must have lost your mind if you think I'm going to give you anything. Besides, don't you make enough money as it is? What exactly is your obsession with me? Why didn't you care when you were breaking my heart and didn't even bat an eye? What are you talking about? You knew I was a wreck. You were literally behind the wheel for all the turmoil you caused me. You watched me suffer. What else do you want from me? When will you be satisfied? When you see me in my coffin? Enough. I don't have time for this. Just give me my money and I'll be on my way. I need the money for my wedding to Rita. What exactly makes you think you're entitled to this money? Are you sick in the head? The inheritance situation was happening while we were still married, so technically, that money belongs to me. I paused, feeling embarrassed. I didn't know the technicalities like that. Was something like that possible? So give me my money. If I'm ever going to give you any money, we'll need a lawyer present. I've heard what you've said. Go home. I will contact you in the morning. Bernard begrudgingly left, angry because he couldn't control me any longer. If we'd still been married, I would have given him my kidney if he asked. But now I couldn't even look this man in the eye without feeling disgusted. In the morning, I called George and the lawyers who were helping us out with the divorce. I explained my situation, and everyone agreed in unison that what Bernard was doing wasn't logical or right. The inheritance money was finalized after signing the divorce papers, and any money that came my way was mine, which was exactly what I thought. Bernard tried to gaslight me into believing that I owed him anything. Angrily, I drove to the house that I used to call home for 5 years and knocked on the door. Eventually, someone answered. "Oh hell. Move. I'm not here for you. I'm here for your evil fiancé." "What is the meaning of this? Don't you dare come into my house and cause a ruckus." "Oh, you mean our house? The house that we built together? You have a lot of nerve treating me the way you do, as if I wasn't good to you. I genuinely believe you should get your head checked because there are some screws loose. Where is your mother?" At that moment, like clockwork, Deborah came out of the kitchen. "Now, what's all this noise I'm hearing?" "Deborah, how could you do this to me?" "What do you mean?" "You told your trifling son about the inheritance money. What for?" "Don't speak to me about my son that way. I told him because, well, I believed that perhaps we could partake in some of that money. I should have known where Bernard got his cheating habit from. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. All of you are sick. You're trying to siphon money from me. I'm struggling to keep afloat, and something good has happened to me for once in my life, and you people want to take that away from me. Well, too bad." I went on to explain to the bumbling fools that the money I got was completely mine, and that because the divorce papers were signed, there was no way for any of these people to get their grubby hands on my money. Of course, Bernard didn't like this news at all, and he proceeded to go on a little rampage, yelling and cursing and even breaking things. I saw his true colors because you won't believe what happened next. Bernard got into his car and drove off. I thought we were done arguing and that he went somewhere to cool off. But when I arrived at my cafe, I found it had been vandalized. The windows were broken, and most of the furniture was damaged. I immediately knew who did this and called the perpetrator. "Bernard, really? You vandalized my shop?" "It had to be done. You aren't giving us the money. Maybe now you'll cooperate. I know you don't have security cameras, so good luck trying to press charges." Wow. Just wow. I cut the call and proceeded to call my good friend George to assess the situation. George began to laugh. "We got him now, Verity." "What do you mean? He's ruined everything. He's ruined my life, and even if I fix it, he'll come back again and again. Don't you see, Verity? We can sue him for this, and with that being said, we can also renegotiate the terms of your divorce settlement." "But I don't have evidence." "Yes, you do. There's always evidence." And sure enough, there certainly was. I discovered that the cameras that came with the building were still working. I was under the impression that they weren't functional, and I caught Bernard's vandalism very clearly. I brought this evidence to George to collate and compose a case against Bernard. Thankfully, our case was well received, and because of the nature of our tumultuous relationship, as well as the collection of all the verbal and emotional abuse that had happened to me, I was highly favored, and the judge determined that I would be receiving $20,000 from Bernard in damages. This obviously made Bernard fill up with rage, and he proceeded to appeal this, but time and time again, his appeal was rejected. Now that I have all this money, I can properly cater to my cafe and allow it to grow and expand. The last I heard of Bernard, Rita, and Deborah was that they were constantly quarreling and bickering. And word on the curb is that Bernard has been spotted several times with a young and attractive blonde woman on his arm. Hi everyone, my name is Carrie, and this is the story of how I dealt with my horrible mother-in-law. To be honest, I'm not solely responsible for her getting kicked out. It was actually her own antics that led to her being thrown out. She almost ended up dealing with the cops if I hadn't been the bigger person. My mother-in-law, Elena, is simply an insane person. She's one of those women who hate other women being around. Unfortunately for her, she ended up having a daughter just after her son. Adding to her misery, her son Keith ignored her protests and married an ambitious woman like me. From the beginning, Elena was incredibly rude and judgmental towards me. Keith and I met through a dating app, which Elena found outrageous. She said, "Why the hell did you pick up a woman from a dating app? You know girls of this type usually like to sleep around and cheat on their partners." "Mom, what is wrong with you? You cannot say these things about Carrie. She's a sweet girl and doesn't deserve your hate." Keith defended me. "Elena, I have no intentions of sleeping around or cheating on Keith. I'm in love with him, and we are actually thinking about getting engaged soon, I said. Oh my God, Keith, is this true? Elena asked. Yes, Mom, I'm planning on popping the question soon. Carrie knows it's coming, but the rest is a surprise, Keith replied. Must be after your money, Keith. Why else would she hurry you into marriage? I'm telling you, Keith, this girl is not good for you, Elena insisted. I'm not a gold digger, Elena. I earn very well for myself. In fact, I earn much more than Keith right now. My field pays a lot, so I'll be comfortable for the rest of my life, I explained. Apparently, that was the wrong thing to say. Elena became even worse after learning that I earned more. She often berated me and hinted that I would be a bad wife, saying working women are neglectful and disloyal. I had no idea why she found problems in everything I said. So I decided to ask Keith's sister, Maxine, about Elena. Maxine, I have no idea why your mom hates me so much. No matter how many times I prove her wrong, she finds something to complain about, I said. Mom is like that, Carrie. She thinks girls are either gold diggers or useless second-class citizens. It boggles my mind why she thinks like that, even after being a woman herself. She didn't even spare me. Mom neglected me all the time and didn't help me with college, but she paid in full for Keith, Maxine explained. Now, Maxine, you don't need to demonize Mom. Yes, you had a problematic relationship with her. But that doesn't mean she hates women, Keith interjected. You've always been blind towards her, Keith. I don't blame you. She was always a good mom to you. She loved and spoiled you. You didn't see what she did to me, Maxine retorted. Keith, I think Maxine might be right to some extent. I wasn't present when you two were teenagers, but I can see what Elena is like. Plus, I've noticed her dismissing Maxine's achievements, I added. There's no use trying to defend me, Carrie. Keith has always been biased about Mom. Watch out, Carrie. If Mom turns on you and wreaks havoc on your life, Keith might just take her side instead, Maxine warned. Maxine and Keith got into a verbal spat after this, arguing about Elena's treatment and favoritism. It was clear to me that Keith was somewhat disillusioned by Elena's motherly behavior towards him. She was actually a very toxic woman, and I hated being around her. Maxine's words stayed with me. After Keith and I got married, I understood that she wasn't far from the truth. We should have started our married life as a couple, but Keith ended up bringing Elena along. When we announced our engagement, Elena quit her job and demanded that we take care of her. She said she was getting old, and it was time we took care of her. I never liked her, but I didn't say no, mostly because Keith wanted to take care of his mom. I lost my parents in college, so I didn't have the heart to turn him down. Elena started living with us, and she quickly became a living nightmare. She constantly ordered me around and did nothing all day. After I returned from work, she would say, "What took you so long, Carrie? Have you forgotten that you are a married woman? You should have been here sooner. There are plenty of house chores left. Who will do everything?" Elena, I had a late meeting and couldn't get home sooner. I can't leave before completing my work in the office, I explained. And what about the work at home? Do you expect me to act like your servant and do it for you? She snapped. I will do everything now. Keith will help out. It's not a big deal, I reassured her. Mom, you don't have to shout at her. We will do everything together. It doesn't take time when two people do it together, Keith chimed in. Absolutely not, Keith. Men don't do house chores. Your father never helped me, and this is Carrie's job. If she can't balance work and house chores, she needs to leave her job or get a divorce. Yep, that's my mother-in-law for you. She hated everything I did, and I guess she hated my mere existence. Whenever I tried to talk to Keith about her, he would shut me down, saying, Mom is old, and she has some really conservative ideas. You don't have to take her seriously, she means no harm. Are you kidding me, Keith? You're not the one on the receiving end of her insults. It's humiliating and exhausting. I can't take her words anymore. Relax, you're overreacting. Mom can be cranky sometimes. I'll try to talk to her about her behavior. You have to be a little patient with her. Maxine was right. Keith rarely took my side. Yes, he defended me against Elena at times, but mostly he asked me to compromise. I was getting tired of his behavior. What's worse was that I was paying a huge chunk of the household expenses because Keith was supporting Elena with his small salary. I felt disrespected and humiliated even after doing so much for Elena. The worst of Elena's behavior was yet to come. A little over a year after we got married, both Keith and I found job opportunities that would significantly increase our pay. We both got shortlisted and needed to go through an interview process. Unfortunately, Keith's interview was delayed, but mine was scheduled soon. Elena absolutely hated it. She said, "Carrie, you seriously can't be thinking of taking the job. That would not be good at all. You don't need to go to the interview." Why would I not take the job? It would raise my salary significantly. I will finally have the job of my dreams. You are a married woman, Carrie. You can't think about your job all the time. If you get the job, you will earn way more than Keith. How can you even think of earning more than your husband? That is so disrespectful. Mom, that is ridiculous. I'm so proud that Carrie has an amazing offer. I want her to get the job. This is her dream job. Don't be so naive, Keith. She will start to financially abuse you. She will lose all respect for you and treat you poorly. Plus, she will try to get rid of me. Don't let her go for this interview. I'm no one to stop her, Mom. I'm telling you that I don't mind all these things. You are overreacting a little. Leave her be, Mom. Elena, I have had enough of you treating me like this. It can't happen again. What I do with my life is none of your business. You don't have the right to comment on it. Elena never backed down from her demands. She tried to do everything in her power to dissuade me from attending the interview. She even suggested that I should skip the interview to support Keith since he couldn't attend his. As my interview date approached, I became very careful. I knew Elena would try to mess things up. On the day of the interview, I saw Elena walk into our study right after I left the room with my CV. Back then, I thought nothing of it. I was excited for my interview and because Keith had finally gotten a call for his interview, which was scheduled for the same day. Keith didn't tell Elena because he wanted it to be a surprise when he got the job. However, things came crashing down when I came home after my interview. Keith looked super sad. Keith, what's wrong? Why do you look so sad? Did something happen at the interview? I asked. Carrie, I didn't get the job. Just look at my damn CV. They took one look at it and rejected me. What are you talking about, Keith? You have the perfect CV. There's no way they were not impressed. Keith handed me his CV. I was shocked. It wasn't his CV at all. It had my name and gender written on it, but everything mentioned in the CV was wrong. It painted me in a bad light and didn't contain a single word of my actual achievements. I had no idea who made this or how it got mixed with Keith's CV. I could see why bringing in something like this could create a bad impression and result in rejection. Keith was devastated. I don't understand this, Carrie. How the hell did this happen? This is not your CV either. It has a bunch of awful things written on it. It can't be that I took yours instead. No, you didn't take mine, Keith. I had an original CV for the interview. That's how I got the job. If I had taken the one you have, they would never have given me the job. This is so bizarre, Carrie. I'm devastated that I lost my job because of this stupid thing. I need to know how this happened. It's killing me inside. Seeing Keith in this mental state absolutely crushed me. It was true that Keith was looking forward to the job, and it pained him to lose it. I was also confused about the fake CV Keith had. Then it clicked. It must have been Elena who had tampered with Keith's CV. She had no idea Keith had an interview. She was trying to sabotage mine and failed. I was filled with anger, but I kept my cool. I needed to show Keith what Elena was really like. So I said, Keith, I think you should ask Elena about this. I'm sure she will have some interesting information for you. What do you mean, Carrie? What does Mom have to do with this? Well, I'm sure you remember how she didn't want me getting the job. I have a feeling she was trying to get my CV replaced with a fake one to destroy my chances. No. Mom would never do that. She didn't even know I had an interview today. Exactly, Keith. She didn't know you had the interview. If she had known, she would have been more careful. I actually saw her sneaking into the office with a file in her hand. By then, I already had my CV in my bag. I guess she looked at your file cover and thought it was mine. Keith was initially in denial, but as I recounted the morning's events, he began to get suspicious. It became apparent to him that Elena might have had something to do with it, so he decided to call her. Mom, come here right now. I need to speak to you. Keith, what's wrong? Why are you shouting? I'm coming. Did you mess with my CV? Answer me truthfully. What? No. Why would I do that? What CV are you even talking about? I don't understand. My CV, Mom. The one I was supposed to take to my interview today. What the hell did you do with it? I didn't do anything to your CV. I didn't even know you had an interview today. Carrie was the one who had an interview. Keith narrowed his eyes at Elena, connecting the dots. Mom, tell me the truth. Did you tamper with Carrie's CV? I already know what you did. There's no point in lying. I don't know what you're talking about. I would do no such thing. Keith, Elena knew I had an interview. She didn't replace your CV knowingly. She wanted to swap mine and ruin my interview. That's why your CV had my name and gender on it. Mom, do you have any idea what you've done? You freaking replaced my CV and cost me a good job. I failed the interview because of you. What the hell is wrong with you? It finally dawned on Elena that she had made a big mistake. Instead of swapping my file, she accidentally swapped Keith's. Realizing the gravity of her error, Elena started to cry. Keith, listen to me. This was all a mistake. I never intended to hurt you. I thought only Carrie had an interview today, and despite my warnings, she still tried to get the job. Why were you so upset about that, Keith? Your wife should not be earning more than you. If she does, no one will call you a man. She will take control of you and kick me out of your life. I did this for your good. You need to stop making yourself the martyr. Have you no shame? You cost your son his new job. He was so excited to join this company and you ruined his chance because you couldn't stand the idea of me having a better job than him. Shut up, Carrie. This is all your fault. If you hadn't tried to get a better job than Keith, I wouldn't have had to do this. There would have been no mishap. I told her not to go for the interview. I had no choice but to stop her. I never wanted to hurt you, Keith. I just wanted her to get rejected. Keith was already very pissed, and hearing Elena's nonsense just set him off even more. All the times you've manipulated and controlled us, it ends now. Keith had never been this angry at his mom. He finally understood how cruel and manipulative she could be. Keith snapped and tore into her. Enough is enough, Mom. Carrie and I brought you into our house and didn't take a penny from you. This is how you repay us? Have you no shame? Keith, Carrie is responsible for this. She constantly pushed my buttons and forced me to do these things. She wants me out of your life and is blaming everything on me. My wife selflessly took you in without any complaints. You are the one who started all the trouble. For months, I ignored her concerns and took your side. I protected you because you are my mom. Now I see I was wrong. I should have kicked you out sooner. How can you say that, Keith? You can't just kick out your mom. I know you don't mean this. You're just angry. I meant every word I said. Starting today, you are never welcome in our house again. We'll give you a month's notice. After that, I don't care where you go, but you won't live with us. No, Keith, you can't do this. Carrie, you've destroyed my life. You're taking away my son. I will never forgive you. Don't blame me, Elena. You brought this upon yourself. I did not instigate anything. You destroyed your relationship with Keith all by yourself. You must be so happy, Carrie. This is making you very happy, isn't it? I will not let you go, you witch. Elena lunged at me, grabbing my hair and pulling at my scalp. Keith intervened, pulling her off me and shouting at her. Keith went ballistic, and Elena started crying uncontrollably. He even threatened to press charges against her and kicked her out instantly. Elena didn't make a fuss, fearing that Keith would really call the police. She left the house in her car, and Keith started to calm down. But after his anger subsided, he immediately burst into tears. The frustration from the interview and with Elena made him break down. Through his tears, he said, "I'm so sorry, Carrie. I should have listened to you. I almost cost you your job because I didn't want to upset my mom. She just showed me how wrong I was about her. She attacked you, for God's sake. I don't know how to face you. I'm ashamed." Don't say that, Keith. This is on Elena. Please don't blame yourself for what happened. I'm not happy about being validated at the expense of your job. I rather wish it was me who lost the interview. No, I'm glad it was me. I was at fault. I should have kicked Mom out sooner. Don't worry, Carrie. After today, I won't ever allow Mom into our lives again. She is unhinged and toxic. I'm done with her. He promised me that Elena would never come near us again. He also told me that from now on, he would make more contributions to our household and cut Elena off financially. He realized it was unfair that I paid most of our bills while he supported someone who hated me. Keith wanted no contact with Elena anymore. Elena did try to get in touch with Keith, mostly begging for forgiveness. She initially sent me some threatening texts, but after I warned her about calling the police, she backtracked and begged for my forgiveness as well. Realizing she was in a deep hole, she stayed at Maxine's place. Maxine, aware of her antics, made her get a job to support herself, refusing to let her freeload. 8 months later, Maxine unceremoniously kicked out Elena after she pestered her to look after her. She was banned from Maxine's house, and her husband told Elena never to return. Elena was forced to move to a different state to live with a relative we barely know. I sent them a nice email about Elena's antics. Yes, I got the email through Maxine. She is a sweetheart. Our families have gotten much closer now that Elena is not around with her favoritism. Keith has also apologized to Maxine for disregarding her feelings. They are now very close, and we hang out regularly. Keith has enrolled in college to get a master's degree, which will help him get a better job in his field. With my current income, we are not having any trouble with money. Keith has always supported me in chasing my dreams, and it's only fair that I do the same for him. Elena's departure has actually made our lives better, and I hope it stays that way for years to come. Have you ever come across people who live like parasites? My name is Violet, and I've met 3 such individuals. My in-laws are the quintessential leeches. They never worked hard and always wanted more than they could afford. My husband Nate was the only successful member of his family and quickly became their cash cow. When I was dating Nate, I had no idea how bad things were. He warned me, but I refused to believe him. After we got married, I saw just how bad his parents, Ben and Donna, were. He also had a brother, Shane, who was the golden child and had never worked a day in his life. And he wasn't a teenager, he was a grown adult in his 20s. Because of my in-laws, Nate and I had to sacrifice a lot. Nate had a good job while I was a stay-at-home wife. This was a joint decision since Nate's job was stressful, and he needed someone to take care of him. We were okay with this arrangement. However, money was always tight because his family took half of his salary. He paid their rent and utilities along with ours. Yet they were never satisfied. Nate, you need to put in more money towards us. It's not fair you spend so much on your wife. She can get a job if she wants money. We're a 3-person family. We deserve more. What you give us isn't enough. Do you want to see us in poor condition? He just wants to keep his useless housewife happy. I don't know why he pays for her. All she does is lounge around the house and look at her phone. I always told you not to spend so much on the wedding, yet you gave in to everything Violet said. Now you have no money for us. That's not what a good son would do, they would say. The emotional blackmail never stopped. Surprisingly, they never made Shane work. He stayed with them, and Nate had to pay for his expenses as well. I never complained because I knew family was important. However, I had no idea I would become a victim of my in-laws. It all started when Donna and Ben got sick one after another. The hospital bills racked up, and the entire situation was pretty stressful for all of us. One day, Nate came home from the office looking very upset. I could tell something was bothering him, and I started to feel concerned. Nate, what's wrong? Please talk to me, I urged. Violet, my parents are very sick. They're having a hard time managing on their own. I really don't know what to do. You know Shane will be of no help, Nate said. Oh my God, how bad is it? I know they've been to the hospital, but I thought they were doing okay. They are better now, but they still need help around the house. Besides, their medical bills are still pending. I don't know how I will clear those bills and pay the rent for 2 houses at the same time. I'm so sorry, Nate. I can see it stressing you out. Please tell me if I can help in any way. I'm willing to help for your sake. I'm glad you asked, Violet. I was wondering if you would be willing to go live with them. It'll be for a short while. Our lease will end next month anyway. If we live with my parents, I can save rent on 1 house. That way, they'll get some help, and I'll be able to clear their medical bills too. There's a lot to think about, Nate, but if that's what makes you happy, we can go live with them. I should warn you though, if they treat me unfairly, I will leave. I will make sure they won't do that. You're already sacrificing a lot for them. This time if they mess up, I won't take it lightly. Consider this the last favor you do for me. We set some ground rules, and Nate informed his parents about the arrangement. From what I could gather, they were pretty happy with everything. Instead of reassuring me, Nate's words set off alarm bells in my head. I prayed I wouldn't regret my decision, but my worst fears were soon realized. With everything set, Nate and I packed up and moved in with my in-laws. We used their spare guest room as our bedroom. Shane made some noise about needing the room for his personal reasons, but Nate shut that down quickly. His parents were surprisingly warm and welcoming, which I suspected was because they wanted to stay in Nate's good graces. However, things took a drastic turn as soon as Nate left for the office. As soon as he was gone, my in-laws pounced on me with a long list of chores. I had moved in with them to help out, but I found myself doing everything on my own. I did their laundry, cleaning, cooking, dishes, mowing the lawn, fixing things, and driving them to places. Ben and Donna just had diabetes and recovered quickly, but they acted as if they were paralyzed. I was okay with doing the work for Ben and Donna because they were getting old, and I didn't have the heart to make sick people work. However, everyone expected me to do Shane's work as well. Shane did nothing all day. He got up late, demanded I make his favorite breakfast, stayed in his room and littered all over, and only came down for meals. Even during meals, he complained. He never did it at dinner because he knew Nate would crack down on him. When Nate wasn't around, Shane always said, "Why you cook this crap every day? You know I don't eat this. Who the hell likes veggies anyway?" "It's a balanced meal, Shane. There's meat in it as well. You can ignore the veggies if you want." "I don't like this at all. Go make me something else. I feel like having lasagna today. And for dinner, make me a steak." "Do you really expect me to stop and make lasagna right now? It will take hours. I just finished cooking 2 meals today and still have to prepare for dinner. Why don't you make yourself something?" "How dare you talk to me like that? I don't cook. I'm a man. Women should do the cooking. My brother is looking after you for a reason. It's your job to feed and work for his family." "No, I'm only responsible for taking care of Nate. All this is extra. Besides, Ben and Donna are sick, but you're fit as a fiddle. You need to help out more." Hearing this, Shane called out to his parents in a classic man-child fashion. It was so ridiculous that I would have laughed if I weren't mentally and physically exhausted. Ben and Donna came running, and they sure appeared fine when defending their son. They heard Shane's tale and said, "Violet, how dare you tell my son to help? This is your job as a housewife. Nate didn't marry you to be a parasite in this family. Yes, you have some nerve staying in my house and telling my son to do your job. He's a man and doesn't have to do feminine work. That's what you're here for. I am not your servant. I am already doing a lot for you guys. The least he can do is make his own meals if he doesn't like mine." Shane literally does nothing but sit around. "What he does is none of your business. Now go make him lasagna. If that's what my baby wants, he will get it. There is no room for arguments." "I don't want it anymore." Shane sneered. "I changed my mind, Violet. Give me some money for takeout to make up for insulting me today." I was furious but knew arguing would be pointless. I reluctantly took money out of my pocket and handed it to Shane. It was a bad day for me and I wanted to cry, but I held back. Instead, I reassured myself that my time would come. Unknown to everyone, I was already collecting evidence of their mistreatment. I had recordings on my phone and proof that Shane regularly asked me for money. I wanted to try and salvage the situation, not wanting to stress Nate more than he already was. He worked hard to take care of us all, and I wanted to support him in return. Somehow, I managed to live with them for 6 months. Their behavior never changed. Instead, their demands escalated day by day. Shane still wasn't working or contributing in any way. Nate constantly berated him for being unemployed, but Shane never talked back to him. However, when Nate was gone, Shane took his anger out on me. He made me clean his room, cook meals, and do his laundry. If I refused, he would complain to Ben and Donna, and the 3 of them would corner me and verbally abuse me until I gave in. Slowly, I was hitting rock bottom. The worst thing happened just when the 6th month came to an end. It was a horrible July with severe thunderstorms, and Nate had to be away on a business trip that weekend. Our area was on high alert for tornadoes. Everyone was worried, and even Nate had a hard time being away from us. Just as I finished preparing lunch, Shane came down from his room and said, You made that food again? Why can't you just follow my damn instructions? Donna and Ben are both diabetic, Shane. We can't have rich and oily food every day for health reasons. How many times do I have to tell you to make my meal separately? You are such a lazy witch. I wonder what Nate ever saw in you. Since you don't want to cook, you could go get me McDonald's. Are you insane? There's a tornado alert. Do you really want me to go out in this weather? Don't be dramatic. It's not that serious. Besides, this is your job. You need to get me something or make me a new meal from scratch. Oh, and my room is dirty. You've been slacking off. You better go clean it. Absolutely not. I'm not doing your work anymore. I already have a lot on my plate with stocking groceries and preparing for the storms. From now on, if you don't like anything, you can cook your own food. You are a grown man, so clean your own room. What did you just say? Just wait till Mom and Dad hear about this. You'll pay for talking to me like this. Shane, as usual, called Ben and Donna. At that moment, I knew things were about to hit the fan. So I got my phone out and started recording. Ben and Donna came down, and Shane cried to them about how badly I was treating him. You have no shame, Violet. We've told you multiple times that our son won't do a woman's job. You never listen to us. You're an ungrateful witch wasting Nate's money, and said. I always knew this little witch was a leech. See, I was right. How dare you mistreat my son in my own house? We've been hosting you, and you have no gratitude, Donna added. I'm tired of working like a dog for you guys. All you three do is sit and complain. There is just so much a person can take. Besides, I'm working enough for this household. You are the ones living like parasites. How dare you insult us and call us parasites? It's Nate's duty to look after his parents, and you, as the daughter-in-law, are responsible for taking care of us, Ben retorted. Telling her won't work anymore. She's gone too far. We need to teach her a lesson, Ben. Since this is our house, Violet, you are no longer welcome here. If you can't respect us and do your job, you need to get out, Donna declared. Yes, Mom, Dad, kick her out. That will teach her not to disrespect us in our house, Shane chimed in. With that, Donna grabbed me by the arm and dragged me towards the door. Before I could react, she pushed me out and locked the door behind her. I fell on the wet grass, scratching my hands and knees. I immediately got up and started banging on their door. No, you can't kick me out. What is wrong with you? There's a tornado coming, and the thunderstorm is already here. You can't keep me outside. Stop shouting, Violet. It'll be of no use. This will be the perfect lesson for you. Now you will know what it feels like not to have a roof over your head, Donna shouted from inside. This is inhumane. You need to let me in. I can't stay out in the storm. It's not safe. I'm already drenched to the bone. Yell all you want, but we'll protect our son first. A girl like you needs to know her place. Now go away before I call the police. I continued banging on their door and crying, but they just turned and left for their rooms. Within seconds, I was completely soaked and started shivering from the cold. The storm was already in full force, and I was scared for my life. Just when I had given up hope, a neighbor lady approached me and told me to come with her. I followed her to her house and felt a wave of relief wash over me. She was an old woman who lived next door and had heard the entire ordeal. She decided to help me. As soon as I reached her house, I broke down in sobs. I knew it was time to finally stand up for myself. The neighbor lady gave me fresh clothes and comforted me while I cried on her sofa. As the storm died down, rage boiled within me, and my resolve grew stronger. I immediately called Nate once I had a better signal and said, Nate, there's something I need to tell you. What happened, Violet? Is everything okay? Has the storm passed? I saw it on the news. Yes, the tornado didn't hit, but there was a bad thunderstorm. The weather has calmed down now. Then what's wrong, dear? Tell me immediately. I'm getting anxious. Your parents kicked me out today. I'm at the neighbor's house, calling you from here. What? That's impossible. Why would they do that? I'm so sorry, Nate. I tried my best to help your family, but they've been verbally abusing me and overworking me. They kicked me out because I refused to remake a meal for Shane or get takeout for him. That's insane. How could they just kick you out like that? Don't believe me? I'll send you some videos. You can watch them and decide. I hung up and sent the videos to Nate. Additionally, the neighbor lady called him and told him what she had witnessed herself. There was a long silence before Nate told me he would be back soon. Meanwhile, my in-laws didn't try to contact me until an hour after I talked to Nate. They were peacefully staying at the house and didn't even care if I was safe. However, when they started blowing up my phone, they called me back into the house. I went there for a final confrontation and said, "What do you want now? After kicking me out, you had no regard for my safety. What's the point of calling me back here? We made a mistake, Violet. Things happen sometimes. We are family. Don't be mad at us. We'll apologize to you. Yes, we can just apologize and move on. Even Shane here will say sorry. Let's just put it past us. Oh, I'm sorry, Violet. This will never happen again. We were being stupid, Shane added. Wow, that's some change in your behavior. What brought this on, may I ask? Nate called us today. He was pretty upset. He said he will look past this if you forgive us. Yeah, if you don't, then he will stop supporting us. You know we are sick and old. Please don't hold a grudge. Without Nate's support, we will be homeless. Good, because that's what you deserve. People who have no empathy for others should not be shown mercy. I will tell Nate that I won't live with you three anymore, and I don't accept your apology. What Nate does after this is completely his choice. As soon as I said that, the trio started to beg and plead for mercy. They kept repeating that they were sorry and it wouldn't happen again. Shane even had the audacity to say that kicking me out was a small joke that went too far and that holding grudges was childish. I ignored them, gathered some of my things, and returned to the neighbor's house. I also called Nate and told him that I would never forgive my in-laws again. Nate took my decision very seriously. He flew back a day early and went straight to my in-laws. When he returned, he told me he wasn't going to support them anymore. He was tired of them treating me unfairly, and enough was enough. Nate decided to stop sending them money for rent or medical bills and wouldn't give them any allowance. Shane would be completely responsible for Donna and Ben. How he would do that was none of our business. Nate and I started looking for a new place. We got lucky because one of his colleagues was renting out one of his apartments. We jumped at the offer and began moving our things the next day. Nate also profusely thanked the neighbor lady for protecting me when he couldn't. Suffice to say, we will continue to keep in touch with her. Meanwhile, Ben, Donna, and Shane thought Nate was bluffing. They asked for forgiveness but never actively tried to improve their situation. So the following month, when Nate didn't send the money, my in-laws were in big trouble. They started blowing up our phones and even called me horrible things. Nate and I simply blocked them. Any relative who felt sorry for them was sent proof of their misbehavior, and that shut them up real quick. It's been a long time since then. Nate no longer sends them any money. Shane was forced to work in a warehouse and earns very little. The three of them live in a small camper, and things are not looking good for them. Nate and I, on the other hand, have finally put a down payment on our dream home. I'm also currently pregnant and expecting our first child. We are looking forward to our new life, away from the leeches that are my in-laws. Hello, today, I want to share a story from my life about how I almost lost $75,000 to my thieving and manipulative in-laws. Thankfully, I knew my way around and managed to get it back. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Tina, and I'm 38 years old. I'm married to the love of my life, Joe. Joe and I met back in college. We had the same elective and got paired together for a project. With every meeting, we realized how much we liked each other. After the project, we continued to hang out and soon began dating. Our relationship was very smooth. We had similar personalities and meshed well together. One of our biggest shared values was our love for our families, which is why about 6 months into dating, we introduced each other to our parents. Joe's meeting with my parents went well, but meeting his parents wasn't the best. Joe's parents, Carl and Julia, were very closed off. They didn't try to get to know me or show any interest in what I was saying. By the end of dinner, I was beyond embarrassed. Imagine telling a joke and having no one laugh, just staring at you blankly. That's exactly what the entire dinner was like. When Joe dropped me off at my place, he'd apologized for his parents' behavior. He explained that they were apprehensive about him dating in college because they wanted him to focus on his studies. I felt like that was a valid reason, so I let it go. About 3 years after we graduated, Joe and I got married. We waited until we were financially stable and settled to tie the knot, which was a great decision because being able to spend without worrying about the future is a blissful form of security. After we got married, I noticed a change in Julia and Carl's attitudes toward us. They had been cold to me up until the wedding when I told them where I worked during a conversation. I held a good position at a well-recognized bank, which must have piqued their interest. Suddenly, they were a little more open. However, this openness came with something ugly. They would make crude remarks at my expense. Whenever Joe or I said anything about it, they brushed it off, telling us to lighten up because they were only joking. Joe and I aren't very confrontational, so we just stuck with it. Then came the requests for money. I come from a low middle income family, so I knew what struggling looked like. The only people who helped my family were other family members, so when my family asked for money, I never said no. It started innocently with Julia needing money to pay off a ticket. She hadn't brought enough money and asked me to bring some over. I helped her out and never asked to be paid back, and she never made an effort to repay me either. Then they started purposely forgetting their wallets at home or not bringing enough money whenever we went out, expecting Joe or me to cover for them. Eventually, they straight up asked us for money. We were spending more money on them than on ourselves, so Joe and I sat down to discuss things. You know I love your parents, but we can't keep giving them money and covering for them like this, I said. Yeah, I wouldn't have any issue if they weren't working individuals who make more money than us, Joe agreed. I just don't know how to bring it up. It feels wrong. I feel the same, but we can put that money to better use, like buying a house, I suggested. You want to buy a house? Joe asked, surprised. Yes, I've always wanted to own a house, I replied. Me too, Joe said. We'll have to stop enabling my parents and live frugally to save quickly, but it will be worth it. Oh my God, are we doing this? I exclaimed. Absolutely. It's been a dream of mine to own a house with you, Joe said. Joe and I started saving the next month, putting aside more than half of our pay towards savings. It was initially a struggle because we were used to certain comforts, but we quickly adapted. We also had to talk to Carl and Julia about not giving them money anymore. Needless to say, they were not happy. Julia bluntly asked Joe if I was the reason for this change. Joe told her it was a joint decision and explained our plans to buy a house, hoping it would get them off our backs, and it worked like a charm. However, they did stop contacting us as much. Joe and I didn't let Carl and Julia's lack of contact bother us. We focused on our work and saving as much as we could. Of course, sometimes we dipped into our savings to finance something big, but overall, we stayed committed to our goal. We got right back on track with our savings and didn't let that setback get us down. In about 2 years, we had saved up around $76,000 in our joint account. We were overjoyed and shocked by how well we had done. One weekend, Joe had been avoiding me all day. I was concerned that something was up, but every time I tried to talk to him, he went silent or said it was nothing and walked away. I gave him the entire day, but by evening, I sat him down for a serious talk. Okay, I've given you time to figure out what's wrong. You need to tell me, I said. There's nothing wrong, Joe replied, trying to deflect. I'm going to stop you right there. Both you and I know that's a lie. Spill. Please don't be mad at me, he hesitated. What's wrong? I did something really bad. Oh no, what did you do? It's okay, you can tell me. I won't get mad. I gave my parents the money we had been saving up for our new house. What? Why? They called me yesterday morning and said they had a lot of medical bills and other huge debts. They made me feel guilty about having so much money, so I gave it to them. I wanted to help them out, you know. Oh, sweetheart, I don't know how to feel about that, but if you stand by your decision to help your family, who am I to say anything? Well, that's the thing. I really regret my decision. Why? I was scrolling through Facebook this morning before you woke up and saw this post my dad made about them going on a luxury cruise they had always wanted to go on. Here, look. I was panicking. I didn't know what to think. How could Joe do this to us? More importantly, how could Carl and Julia do this? We had been transparent with them about our struggles. Joe had opened up to them a lot about it, and they had given him advice on how to save money. Seeing them openly declare their luxury cruise on social media, thanks to us, felt like a slap in the face. I made it worse for myself by checking our joint account balance. There was just $11,000 left. I stared at the screen in disbelief, my mind blank from shock. All the money we had saved over the past few years was gone. All the years we lived frugally felt wasted. I couldn't be mad at Joe because he truly thought his parents were in serious need, but seeing them spend it on a luxury vacation was something I couldn't stand. Joe looked miserable, and while I couldn't be mad at him, I also knew I couldn't easily let this go. He knew his parents had a history of tricking family members out of their money. Usually, it was a small enough amount to forgive, but $75,000 was too much. I grabbed my keys and drove to his parents' place. I knew they wouldn't give up without a fight, but I was determined to get our money back. Once I parked in their driveway, I took a couple of seconds to steel myself for the confrontation. I walked up to their door and rang the bell. Julia answered. "Oh, what are you doing here?" "Who is it, honey?" Carl called from inside. "It's just Tina," Julia replied. "What's she doing here?" "Just ask her." "Tina, be quick. We don't have time for you." "Because you're too busy spending our money." "I told you she'd be here for the money," Carl said, approaching the door. "Look, Joe gave it to us fair and square. Only because you tricked him." "We did not." "Yes, you did. You lied about having to pay off huge medical bills." "It wasn't a lie. We really did have a lot of debt, but we cleared it all out." "I'm glad we could help. Now fork over the rest of the money. It was given to us, so we get to decide what to do with it." "Yeah, could you do us a favor and not disturb us again?" "Thanks." With that, Julia shut the door in my face. I was stunned. I tried ringing the doorbell again and even banged on the door, but they ignored me. I sat back in my car, fuming. I started the car, reversed out of their driveway, and drove around until my anger calmed a little. The audacity that Carl and Julia had was shocking. How could they not feel bad for robbing their own child by tricking him? I remembered how miserable Joe had looked when I left, so I drove back home. By the time I got back, a good couple of hours had passed, and my phone had died pretty much as soon as I had left the house earlier. When I walked into the house, I saw Joe pacing back and forth in the living room, looking beyond worried. He didn't notice me, so I cleared my throat to get his attention. He looked up in surprise before running up to me and hugging me really tight. "Oh my God, thank God you're safe." "I was so worried," he said. "Why?" I asked, taken aback by his intense relief. "You disappeared 4 hours ago and your phone was unreachable. You didn't respond to any of my texts either. How could I not have been worried?" Okay, that was bad of me. I'm really sorry." "It's okay. I'm just glad you're safe. Where did you go, though?" "Your parents' house." "My parents? Why?" "To ask them about giving us our money back." "Oh, Tina, I'm so sorry." "Shush. I get where you were coming from, but you need to have your wits about you." "Yeah, I will. Did they give you the money back?" "Nope." "Oh, yeah. Remind me why this isn't making you freak out." "Because I have a plan to make them give back our money." "Is there any way I could help?" "Oh, yeah, definitely. This plan rides on your help." Joe had a friend who worked with the income tax department, and I worked for the bank where Carl and Julia had their accounts. All I needed was a letter from Joe's friend to freeze their accounts. I would love to see how long Carl and Julia would stay away from me after they could no longer use their money. Joe's friend owed him a huge favor because Joe had used his connections to help his friend get his current job. Joe called him up and explained the whole situation. His friend was more than ready to provide a letter ordering the freezing of Carl and Julia's account. I got on a call with him the next day at work and provided him with all the necessary details about Joe's parents' accounts. We went over the letter together, and he told me that I would get it in a week. That timing was perfect because it was right before Carl and Julia were set to go on their cruise. Since their cruise was all expenses paid, they probably wouldn't even notice that their accounts were frozen. With that extra time, I could also work on filing a case against them for lying and stealing from us. I knew that Carl and Julia would contact me when they realized their accounts were frozen. I would use the case as leverage to get them to pay me back in full. A week later, Carl and Julia left for their cruise. They made sure to send Joe a picture of them on the ship, rubbing salt in the wound. Joe felt beyond upset when he saw the picture, and if I'm being honest, it made my blood boil too. But I knew this would just be further proof of their crime when I filed the case. When they finally got back, Joe and I felt our excitement creep up every day as we waited for a phone call from his parents. It took about a week before they called. "Hi, sweetheart." Julia's voice was overly sweet. "Sweetheart." Joe echoed, confused. "Did you hit your head somewhere?" "Don't be silly, sweetie. Of course I didn't. Although, yes, there it is. What's wrong?" "Don't be rude, but yes, Carl and I have a bit of a problem." "And why do I help you out? Did you guys ask me not to disturb you?" Joe's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Tina, please," Julia begged. "It's a matter of our survival. Our bank account is frozen for some reason. And since you work at our bank, could you look into it for us?" "I'll think about it. Please, we're begging you to somehow unfreeze our accounts. We don't have much cash on us to last us through the week." Oof, that's tough. Anyways, I'll see what I can do. I hung up the call, feeling a tingle of sick satisfaction from Julia and Carl's desperation. But my plan wasn't done yet. I was going to string them along for a while before revealing the truth. I wanted them to feel the anxiety and betrayal I had felt. The next week, Joe mostly ignored their calls. When he did pick up, they asked for money, but he always coldly said no and claimed he was busy. I carried on as usual with my week. Julia called me every day to check if I had any information on how to unfreeze their account. With each passing day, I sensed their panic rising. Somehow, they managed to survive another week. By the second week, I began to ignore their calls altogether, only answering occasionally to tell them I couldn't talk at the moment. It was satisfying to play with them as they had played with us. But eventually, I got bored of the games. So I told them I had information for them. They eagerly invited Joe and me over to dinner at their place. All of their rudeness and mean attitude were absent. Suddenly, they were super nice to me, even prioritizing me instead of ignoring me like usual. Joe and I struggled to contain our laughter at their pathetic attempt to seem nice. After dinner, I pulled out a folder containing the information from my bag and set it on the table. Julia and Carl looked at me nervously. "Oh, what did you find out, dear?" Julia asked. "Yeah, will we be able to get our account back?" Carl added. "I don't think so, at least not for a couple of months," I replied. "Wait, what? Why?" Julia exclaimed. "The funny thing is, I completely forgot I had done this when you were on your cruise," I said with a smirk. "What are you talking about?" Carl demanded. "I had your account frozen," I revealed. "What? Are you mad? Why would you do that?" Julia shouted. "That's what you get for manipulating your son and stealing from us," I said calmly. "You're a monster," Carl yelled. "No, you guys are the monsters. You knew just how much owning the house meant to Joe. You knew how hard he worked to earn that money. You knew all the sacrifices we made, yet you stole from us. How many times do I have to tell you that we did not lie? Get our account unfrozen now," Julia demanded. "You did lie. Just because you embellished the lie doesn't take away the fact that it was still a lie. Your account will remain frozen until you pay us back in full," I insisted. "We'll take you to court," Carl threatened. "I dare you to. I've already filed a case against you. If you don't pay us back in full, I'll push for the case, and then you'll have to do more than just pay me," I retorted. "How can you do this to your own family?" Julia pleaded. "Oh, please, Julia, don't even try. We're giving you guys a month to figure it out and give us the money," I said firmly. With that, I grabbed Joe's arm and we left. As soon as we sat in the car, we burst out laughing. We had done it. The look of shock and betrayal on Julia and Carl's faces was so worth it. They would know never to mess with us again. Joe tried to apologize to me again, but I assured him that it was all okay. We had ensured we'd get our money back and, in the process, given his parents a taste of their own medicine. I don't know how or where they got the money, but Carl and Julia paid us back a week after that dinner. I was beyond happy. Julia texted me, politely asking me to unfreeze their account, which I gladly did the next day at work. Joe and I spent the next few weeks finalizing our new house and moving in. We went low contact with Julia and Carl. We got fooled once, and it would be embarrassing if we let them fool us again. We're both people who value family and tend to have a very soft spot for them. Julia and Carl knew this, which is why we couldn't let them use it to their advantage again. They also never actually apologized for what they did, so we didn't want to be involved with them until they did. Joe and I are living happily in our beautiful home. We're even planning to start a family. At one point in my life, I really thought that I had to resign to my fate, but this experience taught me that if you take things into your own hands, life will go your way. Hey there, I'm Clara, and I've got quite a story for you. My in-laws thought they had the perfect prank up their sleeves. Little did they know that their mischievous plan was about to take an unexpected turn. My husband Tyler and I have been together for a while now. We met in college and instantly clicked, becoming inseparable. His infectious laughter and caring nature drew me in, and I couldn't help but fall head over heels for him. Our relationship blossomed, filled with shared dreams and countless memories. However, his family has some interesting traditions. When Tyler first told me about their quirky habit of playing practical jokes, I found it amusing. Coming from a more reserved family, I was curious to experience the wild side of his relatives. But I soon realized that their pranks were not just harmless fun. They were quite hurtful. Instead of simple jokes between family members, Their pranks were elaborate and often made people feel embarrassed or humiliated. Seeing how they hurt each other made me uneasy, and I didn't want to become the target of their unkind humor. The first time I met them, they played a humiliating prank on me. Tyler's family planned a picnic every couple of months where his parents and siblings, along with their families, would meet up and enjoy each other's company. Tyler decided it was the perfect time to introduce me to his family. I was both excited and nervous because I desperately wanted them to like and accept me. Initially, it seemed like a fun and innocent gathering, but I had no idea about the cruel prank they had prepared for me. Kenneth, Tyler's dad, pretended to spill his drink on me, making it look like an accident. The drink was sticky, so I needed to change my clothes to clean up the mess. Sharon, Tyler's mom, offered me spare clothes from their car, which she got from the trunk. She handed me a bag, and I headed to the public restroom in the park to change. But when I opened the bag, my heart sank. Instead of regular clothes, there was a huge clown costume inside. It hit me like a wave of disbelief. They had planned to embarrass and humiliate me all along. I felt a mix of shock, hurt, and shame wash over me. The mere thought of walking outside in a clown costume turned my face red with embarrassment. How could they go to such lengths to make me a target for their laughter? Reluctantly, I put on the oversized clown costume, feeling exposed and vulnerable. As I walked back to the picnic area, Tyler's family burst into loud laughter. Their mocking laughter filled the air, intensifying my embarrassment. All I wanted was to disappear at that moment. The stares and whispers from other people in the park only made me feel worse, adding to the weight of their cruel prank. It was really hard to bear their laughter and teasing, especially because I had wanted them to accept and welcome me. Instead, they seemed to enjoy seeing me embarrassed, using it as a chance to make fun of me. I felt a mix of sadness and anger, wondering how they could find happiness in hurting me so much. It was utterly mortifying, and I felt like a fool. The emotions I experienced ranged from shock to embarrassment to anger. Tyler saw the look of pain and humiliation on my face as I returned to the picnic area wearing that silly outfit. He was furious at his family. "What the hell were you guys thinking? How could you do this to Clara? I told you that there would be no playing pranks on her. At least not until she's comfortable with it." "Oh, come on, Tyler. It was all good fun. We didn't mean any harm. This is who we are." "Harm? Look at her. She's humiliated. I know the rest of us are okay with these pranks, but she isn't, and you needed to respect that. It's the one thing I asked of you guys." "Tyler, calm down. It was just a silly costume. We didn't mean for her to be so upset." "Just a silly costume? Can't you see how hurt she is? You know how important she is to me, Mom. I won't tolerate this mistreatment." "Tyler, we didn't realize it would upset her this much. We're sorry." "Sorry isn't enough. You've broken your promise. If this ever happens again, I'm serious. I will cut ties with both of you. I won't let anyone treat Clara like this." "Tyler, please. We didn't mean to hurt her. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I hope you mean it. I won't let anyone disrespect the person I love. I expect better from both of you." Tyler profusely apologized to me for his family's behavior, and it was a real turning point. It showed me that our relationship was more important to him than their warped sense of humor. His kind words and understanding were like a balm for my hurting soul, showing me that he was always there for me. Sadly, that incident strained my relationship with my in-laws. Kenneth and Sharon, my mother and father-in-law, took every opportunity to make subtle jabs at me, always referring to me as a wasp or a party pooper. Initially, their words hurt me, but I learned to ignore them and focus on building a strong bond with Tyler. A few months after Tyler's bold promise, he proposed to me, and we decided to tie the knot. The wedding was a dream come true, and the love between us was palpable. We were ecstatic to start this new chapter together. Tyler's parents, Kenneth and Sharon, surprised us with an invitation to dinner at one of my favorite high-end restaurants. They claimed it was to welcome me into their lives and family. Initially, I was very skeptical about accepting their invitation. Sensing my apprehension, Kenneth texted me an apology for the way they had been treating me and promised me that their invitation was a gesture of their acceptance of me. I reluctantly accepted the invitation but couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. After all, I had known them long enough to suspect their ulterior motives. Luckily, I had an ace up my sleeve. The restaurant they chose happened to be owned by my close friend, Connor. Connor and I had a special bond that went beyond friendship. He was like a brother to me, always there when I needed him. Our relationship was built on years of shared memories and unconditional support. We grew up together in the same town and became best friends in high school. We had lost contact when we went off to college but reconnected a couple of years ago. We rebuilt our friendship, and before I knew it, I was wiping away tears of joy and pride at Connor's wedding. Connor was someone I could always rely on, no matter the circumstances. He had a kind and caring nature that made me feel safe and understood. We shared countless laughs, wiped away each other's tears, and celebrated life's triumphs together. Connor was there for me during my ups and downs, offering a listening ear and wise advice. He became an integral part of my life. He even bestowed me with the honor of being named the godmother to his first child. It truly was an understatement to say that Connor was just a close friend. He was more like family to me. Hey Connor, I need to talk to you about something. Hey sure, what's up? So, you know my in-laws, right? Yeah, I remember meeting them. What's going on? Well, they're planning a party for me at your restaurant, but here's the thing, they love playing humiliating pranks on people. The first time I met them, they embarrassed me big time. Really? That's not cool at all. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Thanks, it was awful. But since then, Tyler threatened them, and they haven't tried anything on me again. But I'm worried they might pull something at this party. Don't worry, I've got your back. If they try anything funny, I'll be ready with a backup plan to save you from any embarrassment. Oh, thank you so much. I knew I could count on you. It means a lot to have someone on my side. Of course, you're part of our extended family here. We won't let anyone humiliate you. Just trust me, and we'll make sure you have a great time at the party. I appreciate that. You're amazing. You better tell my kids that I'm amazing when they're a little more grown up. Shut up. I'll need some time to think about it. After my conversation with Connor, a wave of relief washed over me. I felt a glimmer of excitement and anticipation for the party, no longer consumed by fear. Connor's support brought me a renewed sense of confidence, reminding me that I had allies in this battle against humiliation. A few days before the party, I called Sharon to remind her about the importance of accurate reservations. Hey Sharon, I wanted to talk to you about the party at the restaurant. I just wanted to remind you about the importance of accurate reservations. Oh, Clara, I've got it covered. You don't need to worry about it. I know you're busy with the party preparations, but the restaurant has some strict policies, and I want to make sure everything goes smoothly. Are you implying that I can't handle it? I've organized plenty of events before, you know. Oh no, I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted to avoid any hiccups and make sure everything is perfect. Well, trust me, Clara, I've taken care of the reservations and everything will be in order. You can count on me. I felt a mix of relief and lingering doubt. While Sharon assured me that everything was under control, a part of me couldn't help but worry. I hoped that she had truly taken care of the reservations and that the party would go smoothly as planned. The day of the party arrived and Tyler and I stepped into the restaurant. We were greeted warmly at the reception. The employees of the restaurant had quickly become our friends, thanks to how often we frequented Connor's restaurant. A waiter escorted us to our table, but as soon as we reached it, I noticed something was off. There was one seat missing. Panic rose within me as I asked about my seat, only to be met with uproarious laughter from Tyler's family. Tyler, clearly furious with his family, confronted them. I cannot believe you guys. This is completely out of line. You know the restaurant's policies, and yet you deliberately pulled that prank. It's not a joke when it hurts someone. Oh, come on, Tyler, lighten up. It was just a harmless prank. No, Dad, it wasn't harmless. It's humiliating, and it's not okay. You promised you wouldn't do anything like this again. Maybe it will be a real family dinner now. I don't see why we have to invite someone who can't take a joke into our family. Mom, that's not fair. Clara is my wife, and I won't tolerate anyone disrespecting her. How do you propose to fix this prank of yours? I couldn't believe they would dismiss my feelings so easily, labeling it as a joke. It hurt to think that they didn't see the impact of their actions and didn't fully support our relationship. I longed for their understanding and acceptance, but their comments only deepened my sense of hurt and disappointment. Just when tension was about to boil over, Connor walked in. Oh, look who's here. Hey Clara, it's great to see you. How are you doing? Oh my God, hi Connor. It's been a while since we saw each other. I'm doing well, thank you. Tyler's family decided to throw me a party to welcome me into their family. Excellent. By the way, everyone, I'm Connor, the owner of this restaurant. Now let's get this celebration started. Oh, wait a minute, there seems to be a missing seat at this table. What happened? Oh, that's their prank on me. They love playing tricks. I know you're very strict about seating, but do you think there's any way you can make an exception for me? I'm afraid not. If I did this for you, I'd have to do it for everyone. But don't worry, I've got it covered. We have an empty seat in our VIP lounge. How would you and Tyler like to spend the evening there? You have a fantastic view and a comfortable spot. Why does she get special treatment? This is supposed to be a joke. There's no need for all this fuss. Well, it's important to make sure our guests feel comfortable and valued, and I think it's essential to respect everyone's feelings. Anyway, Clara, your meal along with all the drinks for you and Tyler tonight are on the house. Enjoy the evening. Thank you so much, Connor. At that moment, my gratitude towards Connor knew no bounds. Having Connor there with us brought a sense of calm and made me feel safe. He took us to the VIP area, protecting us from the chaos caused by Tyler's family. They loudly protested Connor giving us special treatment, but Connor simply motioned to one of the wait staff to take care of their table, and they immediately quieted down. I thanked Connor a lot for standing up for me and keeping me from feeling even more embarrassed. At that moment, Tyler's support meant everything to me. His actions showed his true character and how much he wanted to keep me safe. He didn't let his family's teasing get in the way. Instead, he chose to protect me and put our well-being first. It showed how deep his love was and how strong our bond had become. Sitting in the VIP area surrounded by safety and support, I felt incredibly grateful for both Connor and Tyler. Their unwavering presence reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey. As Tyler and I ordered our meal and drinks, we finally began to settle down to enjoy the night. However, the night was not yet ready to be calm for us. Hey guys, what do you want? Please let us sit with you. We're all here for Clara's party after all. No, I don't think that's a good idea. We're fine on our own. Well then, what if we apologize? We're family and family doesn't treat each other this way. Yeah, we want to make things right. Can't we all just move past this? Are you kidding? You didn't want her in the family before, and now you suddenly do. Or is it because you want to sit in a fancier place and get a free meal? You guys are a joke. Leave us alone. Tyler, we're sorry. We didn't mean it like that. We were just joking. Joking? It didn't feel like a joke when you humiliated me. Your actions spoke louder than words. Enough. We don't want to hear it. Just go. Tyler, please. No, Mom. It's time you both understand the consequences of your actions. Leave now. Connor, sensing the commotion, intervened and kindly requested Kenneth and Sharon to leave our booth. When they refused, he threatened to call the police. Finally, they slinked away and headed towards their table. However, Connor followed them and asked them to leave his restaurant, citing complaints from other customers about their unruly behavior. Having no choice, they quietly left the restaurant with their heads down in shame as the entire restaurant witnessed their embarrassing exit. That night, Tyler and I had a blast. We laughed, we ate, we shared a couple of drinks with Connor, relishing in the victory over Tyler's family's prank gone wrong. Tyler and I were bombarded with texts from his family after that night. They were filled with anger and blame, accusing us of overreacting and causing a scene. Their words stung, adding fuel to the fire and deepening the rift between us. It felt like the aftermath of a storm with no calm in sight. Instead of engaging in their negativity, we decided to take a stand. We realized that we didn't need that toxicity in our lives, so we made a firm decision and blocked them, putting an end to their hurtful words and actions. Cutting ties with Tyler's family was a necessary boundary to protect our emotional well-being. We refused to subject ourselves to their constant ridicule and cruelty. It was a liberating decision that allowed us to focus on the love and support we shared and the positive relationships that uplifted us. It was a fitting conclusion to this tumultuous saga, allowing us to move forward with positivity and surround ourselves with love and support. Life moved on, and Tyler and I thrived in our love and unity. Our relationship grew stronger, and we built our own loving family, free from the toxicity of his parents' cruel pranks. Thanks for sticking with me through this roller coaster tale. Remember, sometimes the sweetest victories come from the unexpected allies we find along the way. Don't let anyone's cruel pranks dampen your spirit or break your resolve. Stay strong and true to yourself, and you'll always have the last laugh. My name is Judy, and I'm 33 years old. I don't have a big family, so experiencing such a large event was definitely one of the perks of marrying my husband, Kyle. The music was blasting, and the air was filled with laughter and chatter from Kyle's family. This was the first time I had ever been at a function like this. Unlike me, Kyle comes from a very large family. They were celebrating a family reunion in a grand way with at least 100 people in attendance. It was an opportunity for us to meet distant relatives and enjoy good food. But as fate would have it, the day turned into a nightmare for me. Although this outing was meant to be filled with joy and celebration, it turned sour when I encountered my rude and hostile mother-in-law. She made it her life's mission to disrespect and belittle me, especially because she believed I was unable to conceive. But she couldn't have been more wrong. I just couldn't tell her the truth, at least not yet. My journey to motherhood has been far from easy, filled with medical appointments, emotional roller coasters, and dashed hopes. But what made it even more excruciating was having Hannah, a woman who should be a pillar of support, constantly prodding and mocking my struggles. At the function, she approached me and said, "Judy, my dear, you're still not pregnant. You should really get a move on, you know. You're not getting any younger. Oh wait, you're infertile. What a shame. I really wish my son had married someone who could at least conceive a baby." I was taken aback by her words. How could someone be so blatantly rude and malicious? I felt the blood rushing to my face, unable to believe what I had just heard. I had to ask her to repeat herself. "What did you say?" "You didn't hear me. Must be all this loud music. Hold on for 1 second." As if I wasn't already embarrassed enough, Hannah did the unthinkable. Because this was such a large event, she walked over to the DJ and requested to use his mic. "Attention, attention, everyone," she called out. Everyone started to pay attention, and I felt a deep dread about what was coming next. Some of you might know Judy, Kyle's wife. I wasn't going to do this, but I thought this would be a great teachable moment for her and everyone here. We're all family, right? Seeing that this had bad news written all over it, Kyle, who was somewhere off in the distance, started making his way to the DJ booth. He knew his mother all too well and knew she wasn't going to say anything positive about me. Unfortunately, he was too far away to reach her in time. If you turn your attention towards Judy, you'll see she's not pregnant or carrying an infant. This is honestly shocking, considering she's been married to Kyle for 5 years now. Anyhow, it's not her fault. I guess she is infertile after all. "Mom, that's enough," Kyle shouted. Although Kyle screamed, his unamplified voice was no match for the booming microphone his mother was using. She continued. "Don't worry, Kyle. This is a teachable moment. Judy, I know the truth is hard to hear, but you have to hear it anyway. You are infertile, and as a result, you're wasting everyone's time here. We're all not getting any younger, and I want to see my grandchildren. I think it would be best if you two did something like get a surrogate or a divorce." There I was, my face redder than any of the tomato dishes there, with countless eyes looking my way. "I'm serious, Judy. You should honestly consider doing something about that infertility. It's quite selfish and embarrassing. I want to see my grandchild." Thankfully, she was cut off by Kyle, who had finally reached her. I couldn't move at all. It was like I was frozen. It seemed like 100 pairs of eyes were on me, and I just wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole. I felt humiliated as everyone stared, although Kyle managed to stop her. The damage was already done. Some people looked at me with disgust, others with sympathy, but most shared in my embarrassment. They felt embarrassed for me, and as someone who despises pity, this was the worst feeling imaginable. I felt helpless. Normally, I'm the type of person who speaks her mind, but how could I with all these people staring at me? The DJ tried to resume the festivities and wash away the embarrassing moment, but the damage was irreversible. Some people resumed their activities, but I knew the gossip had already started, and this incident would be a hot topic in the family group chat for weeks to come. I did what many others would have done in my situation. I fled. Feeling unwelcome and unloved, I saw Kyle and Hannah arguing off to the side. I seized the opportunity to escape, running inside the house to find the nearest bathroom and lock myself in. I cried for what felt like hours until I heard a knock on the door. It was my loving husband, Kyle. What he said when he saw my red eyes and puffy cheeks shocked me. I swear to God, after today, I'm never speaking to that woman again. "Kyle, you can't say that. She's your mother. Yeah, and she's also a bully. I can't ever show my face here again. We can go home right now if you want. Just say the word and we're out of here. No, that would mean I've admitted defeat. What did you say to her? Kyle went on to explain how he berated her for her insolence and rudeness. Why would she say something like that? We don't even know half the people who are here. I still can't believe she said that. I know, love. I've let her walk all over you for too long. I'm sorry I let it get to this point. We hugged, and I continued crying in his arms. This is why I love him so much. After being conditioned in my childhood to be strong and hide my tears, Kyle was always there to catch them and console me. I pulled away slightly, looking up at the love of my life. His warm brown eyes met mine, and I was struck once again by how much I loved him. I smiled weakly despite my tears, hoping to distract myself from the humiliation. Do you remember how we met? Kyle chuckled. Of course I do. How could I forget such a beautiful day? I laughed too, remembering that fateful day. We were both studying at the university library and ended up fighting over the last available power outlet. We struck up a deep and meaningful conversation, and before we knew it, hours had passed. We exchanged numbers, and the rest, as they say, is history. I love you so much, Kyle. I love you too, Judy, more than anything in this world. If you need us to go home, just let me know. This party is dead anyway after that stupid stunt my mother pulled. Kyle, do you remember when we found out? He nodded, a pained expression crossing his face. We were trying so hard, and I thought maybe I was the infertile one. But finding out it was you who was infertile was somehow even worse for me. I was ready to handle it if it was me, but you're just so perfect. I never expected it to be you. I never wanted that for you. I'm so sorry. I know, babe, it was a tough time for both of us. But we got through it together, and we'll get through this too. Kyle smiled at me, his love shining in his eyes. I knew then that we were in this together, no matter what life threw at us. You should tell her the truth. What? I couldn't possibly do that. I should have just been honest with the family from the start. I did know she harbored this much resentment over us not having kids yet. What's worse, she automatically assumes it's your fault. If I had been honest from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Kyle, don't beat yourself up. You know your mother is crazy. She probably would have found another way to humiliate me even if you had been honest. It's fine, babe. I don't mind her hating me, but I can't stand the idea of her not liking you because of your infertility. You know how obsessed she is with continuing this bloodline. That's true. I mean, she did invite 100 people to this thing, which is ridiculous now that I think about it. No, I'm not going to tell her. Wait here. Before I could question where he was going, he let go of me and left the bathroom. Still reeling from the embarrassment, I heeded his words and stayed put. 5 minutes passed. Just when I thought Kyle might have done something stupid, like announcing the truth to everyone, he came back in. Thank goodness. I thought you went to do something stupid. I was about to bust out of here and stop you. You still might try to stop me, but I won't let you. What do you mean? What did you do? I couldn't believe my eyes when Kyle handed me a stack of papers. What are these? My infertility results as well as your high fertility results. I printed them out at the library. My stomach dropped. How could he have done this without telling me? Now he wanted me to show them to Hannah. I couldn't humiliate him like that in front of everyone. I can't do that, Kyle. I told you I wouldn't. I can't just show these to her. But Judy, she humiliated you in front of everyone. She deserves to be put in her place. She'll be embarrassed because of how wrong she was. I know, but I just can't do it. It's not fair to you. I don't care about that. She's the one who should be embarrassed. Being infertile is nothing to be ashamed of, even though it's so heavily frowned upon. There are ways to fix it, and I think I'm ready to face these skeletons head on. We should look at alternative methods of conceiving. I looked up at him, feeling overwhelmed by his love and selflessness. How could he be so willing to sacrifice himself like this? And what's more, it seemed like he was ready to properly face this ailment and take the necessary steps to address his situation. For such a long time, it was a sore subject. But now, as I looked into his loving eyes, I could see the amount of healing and growth he had been through to reach this moment of clarity and compassion. But Kyle, it's not just about that. It's also about the fact that she's never respected me. She's never even tried to get to know me, and now she's making fun of my infertility like it's some kind of joke. Kyle put his arm around me, pulling me closer. I know, Judy, and that's why we have to do this. We have to stand up to her and show her that we won't be pushed around anymore. I looked up at him, feeling grateful for his strength and support. Okay, let's do it. We went outside to greet the crowd. It seemed like everyone had resumed the festivities, but little did they know that more chaos was about to ensue. I gave Kyle one last look, asking silently if he was sure. He confirmed by leading me to the very same DJ booth where I had been humiliated not so long ago. Kyle grabbed the mic and got everyone's attention. Attention, everyone. We have something important to say. People turned their heads toward the booming voice coming through the microphone. Earlier today, my wife was attacked unfairly and quite rudely for no good reason. Now she wants to give her side of the argument. Kyle handed the mic to me. I gulped, recognizing that everyone's attention was now on me. I scanned the crowd and met the glaring eyes of none other than Hannah, who was making her way to the booth. Hello, everyone. As you may or may not know, I'm Kyle's wife and Hannah is my mother-in-law. I need to repeat the harmful words that were. That's enough. Hannah interrupted, but my confidence and anger only amplified. I was sick of her incessant rudeness. You will not interrupt me while I speak. I gave you a chance to speak, and now it's my turn. Shocked and taken off guard by my feistiness, she shut up. Thank you. As I was saying, I need not repeat what was said about me. But I am a lover of truth, and if someone is spreading misinformation about me and my family, even if it's a very personal and private matter, I need to rectify it. Turning to face Hannah squarely, I said, You think that I'm infertile and that I'm unable to conceive a baby? Well, I'll tell you what the real truth is. It's your son Kyle who is infertile. Here are the documents that prove it. Kyle handed over the documents to Hannah, who was visibly shocked. The crowd murmured and gasped all around. I looked at Kyle to make sure he was okay, and he was, even smiling and chuckling at everyone's surprised expressions. But the funniest expression was my mother-in-law's. Silence filled the area, and everyone's attention was drawn to us. Hannah's face turned pale as if I had just slapped her. What are you talking about? This can't be true. Oh, but it is true, and what's more, I am the one who has a high fertility rate. More gasps and murmurs reverberated through the crowd. This scene looked like it was pulled straight out of a movie. I don't even know what to say. Kyle, why didn't you tell me about this? Maybe because I wasn't ready. The topic of infertility can be a sensitive one, and I know you wouldn't have done this to me if I were in that position. But the fact that you blatantly tried to embarrass my wife in front of everyone doesn't sit right with me. I had to set things straight. Kyle, I'm so sorry. Don't say sorry to me. Apologize to Judy. It was as if Kyle had asked her to recite the King James version of the Bible in Latin. She was so hesitant, but Kyle persisted. He even grabbed the mic from me and began to chant, Apologize. He kept chanting it over and over, and slowly but surely, the crowd followed suit, all demanding for Hannah to apologize to me. But because of her pride, even the pressure from a whole mob of family members couldn't sway her. I'll do no such thing. She doesn't deserve it. Even if I was incorrect about the fertility thing, why didn't she just say it? It's her fault for not clearing up the air earlier, and now she wants to embarrass me. People began to boo her like she was a terrible music artist performing a terrible set. Feeling embarrassed on her own property, she ran inside the house, attempting to escape the judgment being passed. The story doesn't end there, though. We resumed the festivities while Hannah spent the rest of the event holed up in her room. Several aunts and uncles made attempts to lure her out, but to no avail. She was stuck in her pride, and it was leaving a sour taste in people's mouths. Nonetheless, we enjoyed the rest of the reunion. Various family members, both known and extended, approached Kyle and me, commending us on our bravery. Some were glad we finally put that woman in her place, while others didn't know the extent of her maliciousness. By the end of the evening, it truly felt like a big happy family reunion, which I was so grateful for. The next day, exhausted and drained, we received a call from one of Kyle's aunts. She said the family had a meeting and agreed they wouldn't include Hannah in any future family events until she apologized. They also recommended we remain distant from her until she could grow up and take accountability. I agreed wholeheartedly. I didn't want to be subjected to her cruel remarks again. While I wasn't surprised by the decision, it still stung to hear that our family was now officially divided due to Hannah's incessant hatred toward me. Kyle and I discussed the situation and agreed it was time to move on. We couldn't keep enabling Hannah's toxic behavior by being bystanders in her abuse, and we needed to protect our mental health. We were already going through so much, and since we wanted to start a new chapter in our lives and build a family of our own, it was time to say goodbye to the drama and focus on building a happy, healthy life together. So we said our goodbyes to Hannah without any regrets or second thoughts. We sent her an email detailing our feelings, and Kyle left her a long voice note telling her that he would love for her to be part of the new life we were trying to build, but he wouldn't allow toxicity and negative energy to be part of it. Unsurprisingly, she never responded. To this day, we haven't heard from her. It turns out she prioritizes her pride so much that she's willing to give up her relationship with her potential grandchildren. Good riddance to bad rubbish, as they say. We didn't need that kind of negativity in our lives anyway, and we were better off without her. But deep down, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness, at least for Kyle. Hannah was still Kyle's mother, after all. I had hoped we could be close one day, but it seemed like that would never happen. I don't know how Hannah is doing now, and I honestly don't care. But what I do know is that I'll never forget that day, and I'll never let anyone make me feel inferior again.
Hello there, I'm Alice, a 32-year-old woman currently 9 months pregnant. Today, my husband and I are driving to his family's home, a mere 30-minute drive from our apartment. It's a short trip, so we often visit 2 or 3 times a month. This time, we're especially excited because my mother-in-law is baking her famous apple pie. My mother-in-law is a sweet lady. After losing her husband last year, she was really down and didn't know what to do. But she's recovered now and is eagerly waiting for the birth of her grandchild. However, not everyone is thrilled about our baby. My sister-in-law, Brianna, is one of them. According to my mother-in-law, Brianna married 6 years before us, but hasn't been able to conceive. She even started fertility treatments 2 years ago, but still no baby. With all the pressure, she's become quite irritable lately. My mother-in-law advised us to avoid Brianna as much as possible, so we usually visit when she's not around. But today, to our surprise, Brianna showed up unexpectedly. Well, long time no see, Alice. You've put on some weight, haven't you? You're not just lazing around at home because you're pregnant, right? You look like a seal, all round and ready to roll down a hill, she said sharply. I was dumbfounded by her immediate and harsh remark. Hey sis, how can you say something like that right off the bat? She's 9 months pregnant. Of course, her belly's going to be big. You're going to make enemies with pregnant women all over the world talking like that. My husband quickly jumped to my defense, leaving me speechless. Oh, please, I'm just thinking about Alice. It's tough if a pregnant woman gets too heavy, you know. I just want Alice to be aware of her responsibilities as a mother, Brianna claimed, pretending to be concerned. I knew arguing back would only cause more problems. Thank you, sister-in-law. Yes, you're right. I should be more careful. I chose non-confrontational words, but she huffed and said, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. Start cleaning this house right now. You're lacking exercise, right? You can at least do that much. She handed me a broom and dustpan, demanding I clean. However, after being scolded by my mother-in-law and my husband for harassing me, Brianna sulked and secluded herself in an upstairs room. I'm sorry, Alice. She just showed up all of a sudden. I told her to leave. My mother-in-law apologized with a regretful look on her face. It's fine, mother-in-law. I'm not bothered, I reassured her. I'm sorry, Alice. That's just how my sister is, my husband added. Despite the tension, we spent a pleasant time together, enjoying the apple pie and sipping tea. We called out to Brianna, but there was no response. Although we were worried, she never came down in the end. However, I had no idea that a shocking incident would occur just a few days later. I went to my in-laws' house alone to speak with my mother-in-law. As I wondered why the front door was unlocked, I discovered Brianna in the living room. Sister-in-law, what brings you here? I heard from mother-in-law that you had to work today, I said, surprised. I wasn't in the mood, so I took the day off. I was surprised to see you here. You disrupted my cleaning last time. Now please get back to work, she said, thrusting the broom and dustpan back at me. To avoid any trouble, I decided to clean as much as I could. But that day, I was feeling discomfort from early morning, and during the cleaning, I began to feel pain in my stomach. Just as I thought of taking a short break, Brianna kicked my stomach, causing my water to break. The pain escalated, and I fell to the floor. Ah, it hurts. Somebody, please help. I cried out, taking my mobile phone from my pocket and quickly dialing my mother-in-law. The baby is in trouble, I managed to say before losing consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm and my body wrapped in an electric blanket. Where am I? What about my baby? I tried to sit up, but the pain in my abdomen stopped me. My stomach, which was supposed to be large, had shrunk, and I was shocked. I pressed the nurse call button, and when the nurse arrived, I asked what had happened. Apparently, my water had broken, and I had to give birth via emergency cesarean. The baby was small and in an incubator but was in good health. My mother-in-law and husband, who had rushed to the hospital, were informed by the doctor. Their faces were red with anger. I decided to visit the baby once I felt better and tried to sleep as much as possible to recover quickly. However, the next day, an unbelievable pair showed up in my hospital room. My sister-in-law, who had kicked me, and her husband. They entered without knocking, their impudence making me frown. When they suggested, "We'll pay you, let's settle this," I felt a chill run down my spine. When I refused, they lashed out at me with every offensive word they could think of, directed at my tired face, still recovering from the cesarean operation. Thinking about how my daughter had to go through such an ordeal because of these people, something inside me snapped. A settlement? Are you kidding me? You must be joking. I'll ruin your life, I declared, my voice shaking with anger. Enraged by my words, they continued shouting. What are you saying? We're offering a solution with money. Aren't you thankful, Alice? Didn't your parents teach you to obey your elders? We're telling you to settle, so just agree quietly, my brother-in-law added, joining in the argument. Forgetting it was a hospital room, our voices escalated until the door suddenly swung open. I've heard everything. I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no intention of settling. My husband, tall and imposing, stood at the door, his deep voice resonating through the room. The two who had been so confident moments before were now taken aback. Ah, long time no see, Finn. It's a coincidence to meet you here, my brother-in-law stammered, his face tense. It truly is a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here, nor did I expect to hear such words from you. I would appreciate an explanation. We were all in the room when you said it, so there's no room for any excuses. My husband responded, his fury barely contained. Don't be so angry, Finn. It's not like we had ill intentions. We just feel bad for what we did to Alice. That's why we're offering money, hoping to settle this out of court, my sister-in-law explained, her voice trembling. But my husband's fury didn't subside. The one who decides whether this will be a settlement or not is Alice, not you. Besides, do you think this is a situation that can be solved with money? Alice had an emergency C-section, and the baby is in an incubator. You endangered both their lives. Do you even understand that? My husband exploded, his emotions getting the best of him. I also couldn't forgive them just because they were throwing money at us. I agree with my husband. No amount of money can make this right. You will face the consequences of your actions, I said firmly. It seemed like my sister-in-law assumed that throwing money at us would make us forgive them, but this situation was far more serious. Thankfully, both my daughter and I were fine, though she was in an incubator. Had there been any mistake, the outcome could have been much worse. My sister-in-law seemed entirely oblivious to this reality, and I suspected my brother-in-law felt the same. At my words, my sister-in-law flared up and raised her voice. What do you mean? This is all because of her. She knew I couldn't get pregnant, and yet kept rubbing her belly in front of me. Was that a jab at me? She shouted, her face red with fury. I was furious. That's why you did what you did. To make sure I never do anything like that again. How ridiculous. I hadn't met you often since I got pregnant, and every time you saw me, you would go into your room and not come out. So how did you see me rubbing my belly? I retorted, incredulous at her excuse. No matter what she said, it wouldn't erase what she had done. I understand that you're struggling, but that doesn't justify doing something like this to Alice. No matter the reason, endangering a life is never acceptable, my husband explained, stating the obvious. But they both looked elsewhere, not even trying to listen to us. It seemed like they wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. Seeing the two of them show no remorse, I felt my condition worsen. Are we done here? I just had surgery and I'm not feeling well. If you continue to cause a ruckus, I'll call the police, I warned. Arguing wasn't going to resolve anything, and dealing with them was too much for me while I was still recovering. After my husband kicked them out, I sighed heavily. Fortunately, my husband had recorded their conversation, giving us solid evidence. My mother-in-law was furious about what her daughter had done, endangering my life and her grandchild's. We decided to press charges against my sister-in-law. We filed a complaint with the police, and my sister-in-law was taken to the station. Through a lawyer, we began negotiations, but my sister-in-law insisted I'd done nothing wrong. This woman has been flaunting her pregnancy in front of me, causing me emotional distress while I struggle with infertility. She's not innocent either, so she should be open to a settlement. At first, she was eager to pay any amount, but then she began claiming her innocence, suggesting we both were at fault. She had been intimidated by my husband at the hospital, but now, determined to avoid paying, she put up a stubborn fight. However, she had no idea that our conversation in the hospital room had been recorded. When the evidence was presented, both their faces turned ashen. Even with such clear evidence, you still claim you're innocent? I'm afraid that won't fly, my husband said firmly. After enduring their insults and refusing to agree to a settlement, my sister-in-law, in anger, flung a cup of cold coffee at us. Thankfully, it was cold, so we weren't burned. Their outrageous behavior and language resulted in additional charges, forcing them to increase the compensation amounts. Trying to calm his infuriated wife, my brother-in-law left the office with her. Given the assault charges and their behavior, the amount we demanded became substantial. When we told my mother-in-law what had happened, she looked deeply remorseful. I'm so sorry for what my daughter has done. There's no need for you to agree to a settlement. I'll make sure she faces the consequences, she apologized tearfully. I couldn't help but feel incredibly sorry for her. In the end, my sister-in-law was ordered to pay hefty compensation. Shocked by the amount, she called me repeatedly, insisting we reduce the amount because we were both at fault. I couldn't comprehend how she could argue this after all she had done. No matter how many times you call, the answer remains the same. We have no intention of reducing the amount or agreeing to a settlement. Honestly, your calls are becoming a nuisance. Please stop, I snapped at her. This caused her to lose her temper, and unbelievably, she barged into my apartment. Hey, you're there, right? I know you're in there. Get out here now, coward, she shouted, pounding on the door. I was resting on the sofa, still in pain from my surgery. What on earth are you doing? Is everything okay with you? Your shouting is disturbing everyone else. Please stop, I yelled back, but she continued to bang on the door. It was past 8 p.m., and there were elderly people and families with babies in the apartment. Of course, my husband was still at work and hadn't returned home. Since I got discharged from the hospital, I had been visiting my daughter every day, feeling unwell and now dealing with my sister-in-law's unannounced visit. I was at my wit's end. No matter how many times you come here, my mind won't change. Please don't come here anymore, I said, fighting back despite feeling unwell and pale. But my sister-in-law was desperate for a settlement, ignoring my concerns. I didn't do this because I wanted to, you know. It's because of your intrusions that things have come to this. It's presumptuous of you to get pregnant before me. Shouldn't you have been more considerate and waited to get pregnant after us? She ranted. It seemed she saw pregnancy as some sort of competition. I don't think pregnancy is a competition or that it's more honorable to get pregnant first. But for my sister-in-law, who has struggled with infertility for many years, it seemed like she viewed pregnancy that way. Everyone has different values, I thought, exhausted by the ordeal. But that's no excuse to hurt others. I understand you're upset about not being able to have children, but that's no reason to hurt anyone. I cannot forgive you for putting my daughter in danger. For that, you will be held responsible. Above everything else, the fact that she had endangered my daughter was unforgivable. Just then, the sound of sirens could be heard outside. It seemed someone in the apartment had reported the disturbance. Well, I suppose if you're banging on someone's door and yelling at this hour, it's inevitable that the police would be called. What do you mean the police are here? Open the door. You have to hide me, my sister-in-law pleaded. Despite her pleas, I had no intention of hiding her. The police arrived at the apartment and began questioning her. I explained the situation from my perspective. Just at that moment, my husband returned home, and I filled him in on what had happened. Considering everything that had transpired, my husband told the police everything, and they took my sister-in-law away. That night, my brother-in-law called to tell me he was divorcing my sister-in-law and asked me not to involve him in the issue, a rather self-serving request. Apparently, one of my husband's colleagues had been at the hospital where I was admitted and overheard my brother-in-law's conversation. When he got to work, gossip spread among the female employees, and my brother-in-law was looked down upon. The situation worsened, and somehow the story reached the HR department. Realizing he couldn't talk his way out of it, he confessed everything. He was then told that someone like him couldn't stay at the company and was being transferred to a regional office. I can't deal with her issues anymore. If any more problems arise, I'll be fired. So please leave me out of it, he said before hanging up. I haven't heard from him since. Afterward, we received substantial compensation from my sister-in-law. To ensure she would never come near us again, we changed our phone numbers and moved away. Even if she ran out of money and needed help, she wouldn't know where to find us. A few months later, my daughter was discharged from the hospital. She didn't have any lingering effects and was growing up healthy. Rumor has it that my sister-in-law was in substantial debt. At first, she moved from friend to friend, but she never contributed to living expenses and stayed too long, so they kicked her out. Now, with no place to live and no money, she is working part-time to pay off her debt. Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine, and this is my story. I want to share an experience involving my soon-to-be ex-husband and my mother-in-law. The betrayal and lies still haunt me, and I need to get this off my chest. I've seen many posts about people dealing with horrible mothers-in-law and their equally terrible sons. I faced a similar situation. When I married my husband, Tom, I had no idea he was a mama's boy. His mother, Vera, had been extremely close to him since childhood. He was raised to believe that his mother always came first. I didn't mind that Tom was close to his mother, but Vera's hold over him suffocated me. After we got married, Tom often said, "Even though you're my wife, my mom is still a priority. I hope you understand that, Jasmine. I don't want you to think otherwise." I replied, "As long as you respect and value me as well. I have no problem with your closeness to Vera. You are her son, after all. Thank you for understanding, Jasmine. I hope we won't have problems with this in the future." Tom wasn't joking when he said Vera was his priority. As the years went by, it became clear that Vera held an even higher position than me. Tom had a good job, but spent half his income on her. Vera refused to work and insisted on living off her son's money. I had to put more money into our household accounts to make ends meet. When I talked to Tom about this, he responded angrily, "How dare you bring this up, Jasmine? I already told you my mom is a priority. Why are you creating trouble about this? Do you want my mom to starve?" "I never said that, Tom. You're just giving her more money than necessary. I've tolerated it for years, but you need to stop. That will never happen. I have a responsibility towards her, and I will send her whatever money I please. Stay out of this." I knew I was fighting a losing battle. We had many fights about Vera, and it didn't help that Vera hated me and insulted me at every opportunity. Tom was the only one invited to her house for Christmas. I was never allowed. Tom had nothing to say about this and always left me alone to celebrate with Vera. Things didn't improve even after we had a child. Our son, Ethan, was also boycotted from Vera's house because he was my child. He craved his grandmother's love when he was young, but Vera only had insults for him. Tom never protested and told us to deal with it. Eventually, Ethan and I both gave up trying to please Vera. I didn't want Ethan to grow up with divorced parents, so I stayed. However, I later realized my mistake. One day, when Ethan was about 12 years old, Tom sat me down and said, "I've quit my job, Jasmine. Today was my last day. I've been thinking about leaving for a while, and I think it's time." "What? Why didn't you discuss this with me? Do you have any jobs lined up?" "No, I won't be returning to work anytime soon. I feel burned out and need some rest. You earn enough to support us, so that won't be an issue. By the way, I hope you know that Mom will be moving in with us. You need to take care of her as well." Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine, and this is my story. I want to share an experience involving my soon-to-be ex-husband and my mother-in-law. The betrayal and lies still haunt me, and I need to get this off my chest. I've seen many posts about people dealing with horrible mothers-in-law and their equally terrible sons. I faced something similar. When I married my husband Tom, I had no idea he was a big mama's boy. His mother, Vera, had been extremely close to him since childhood. He was raised to believe that his mother always came first. I didn't mind that Tom was close to his mother, but Vera's hold over him suffocated me. After we got married, Tom often said, "Even though you're my wife, my mom is still a priority. I hope you understand that, Jasmine. I don't want you to think otherwise." I replied, "As long as you respect and value me as well. I have no problem with your closeness to Vera. You are her son, after all." "Thank you for understanding, Jasmine. I hope we won't have problems with this in the future." Tom wasn't joking when he said Vera was his priority. As the years went by, it became clear that Vera held an even higher position than me. Tom had a good job but spent half his income on her. Vera refused to work and insisted on living off her son's money. I had to put more money into our household accounts to make ends meet. When I talked to Tom about this, he responded angrily, "How dare you bring this up, Jasmine? I already told you my mom is a priority. Why are you creating trouble about this? Do you want my mom to starve?" "I never said that, Tom. You're just giving her more money than necessary. I've tolerated it for years, but you need to stop. That will never happen. I have a responsibility towards her, and I will send her whatever money I please. Stay out of this." I knew I was fighting a losing battle. We had many fights about Vera, and it didn't help that Vera hated me and insulted me at every opportunity. Tom was the only one invited to her house for Christmas. I was never allowed. Tom had nothing to say about this and always left me alone to celebrate with Vera. Things didn't improve even after we had a child. Our son, Ethan, was also boycotted from Vera's house because he was my child. He craved his grandmother's love when he was young, but Vera only had insults for him. Tom never protested and told us to deal with it. Eventually, Ethan and I both gave up trying to please Vera. I didn't want Ethan to grow up with divorced parents, so I stayed. However, I later realized my mistake. One day, when Ethan was about 12 years old, Tom sat me down and said, "I've quit my job, Jasmine. Today was my last day. I've been thinking about leaving for a while, and I think it's time." "What? Why didn't you discuss this with me? Do you have any jobs lined up?" "No, I won't be returning to work anytime soon. I feel burned out and need some rest. You earn enough to support us, so that won't be an issue. By the way, I hope you know that Mom will be moving in with us. You need to take care of her as well." "I have to take care of Mom all day. I don't have time for your chores. Those are your responsibilities, not mine. Make Ethan work with you." I couldn't believe the audacity of Tom. Ethan was already helping me with all the chores despite having his schoolwork. We were both exhausted from serving Tom and Vera, yet Tom never helped out. Vera complained all day long and refused to do even basic tasks she was perfectly capable of doing. I was tired of working for them. My bank account was empty, and I had very little savings left. Still, I held myself together because I felt sorry for Vera and Tom. Well, it turns out I was being played for a fool. One day, Ethan approached me when Tom and Vera were not around. He said there was something he needed to talk about. "Mom, why does Grandma still use a wheelchair? She isn't sick anymore. Why does she need it even now?" "Your grandma is still paralyzed, Ethan. This means she cannot move without the wheelchair. Unfortunately, she hasn't gotten any better." "But I see Grandma walking every morning. I thought she had recovered. Why are you saying she can't walk?" "What do you mean, Ethan?" "Vera is paralyzed from the waist down. She can't walk, son. You must have mixed it up." "No, Mom, it was her. When I asked her how she can walk, she just shushed me and ignored me. She even told me not to tell you." I was immediately alarmed. I had a nagging suspicion that something wasn't right, but without any proof, confronting Vera was out of the question. Now, my son had given me some grave news. I was starting to get very angry, but I needed more information and proof. So I said, "Do you have any proof by any chance?" "I need more proof, Ethan." "Yes, I do, Mom. I took a video with my phone. Do you want to see it?" "Show me the video, Ethan. I need to see it right now." Ethan was right. His video did catch Vera walking in the hallways. I was shocked and couldn't believe my eyes. What was even more shocking was that Tom saw her walking and didn't seem surprised. In fact, he even walked up to her, and they laughed about something in the hallway. I was absolutely furious. They have been fooling me for 6 months. I immediately saved the footage on my phone and waited to confront them. The next day, when I returned from work, I saw that Tom and Vera were casually talking in the living room. I was enraged but kept my cool. It was time to confront them. I sat down beside them and said, "There is something I need to talk to you both about." "What is it, Jasmine?" "Tell us now," Tom said. "Why did you two lie to me about Vera's condition? I know she's not paralyzed and can walk just fine. So tell me, why did you do this?" "What are you talking about, Jasmine? This is ridiculous. You know Mom is paralyzed. Are you accusing her of faking it?" Tom replied. "How dare you accuse me of faking it? You're such a witch, Jasmine. I was right about you all along. You are a heartless woman," Vera added. "Don't lie to me, you two. I have ample proof that Vera can walk. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I also know you know about this, Tom." "This is ridiculous, Jasmine. How can you accuse us like this? I didn't expect this from you. Stop being such a cruel person and making up lies about us," Tom said. "Well, I'm not making things up, Tom. As I said, I have proof. Since you won't accept it, I'll show you. Here, watch this." I took out my phone and showed them the footage. They both turned pale, their eyes bulging out of their sockets in shock and fear. When the video ended, I calmly put down my phone and said, "Now that I've shown you the proof, tell me why you have been lying to me. I want an answer." "Well, Mom was really paralyzed, Jasmine. She only recovered recently. We've been keeping it a secret. We actually wanted to surprise you," Tom stammered. Yes, it's true. I needed time to feel like I could walk normally. We wanted to wait and tell you the news when we were sure." Vera added hastily, "Nice story you've got there, guys. However, I don't believe you one bit. If you want to prove yourselves, I need to see your doctor's certificates. Only then will I accept your words." Tom and Vera looked visibly anxious and started to mutter nonsense about not having a note at the moment. When it became apparent that they had no proof of Vera's disability, I said, "That's it. Now I know everything I needed to know. Since you two can't give me proof, I won't be taking care of you. I want you both out of the house next month. And Tom, I am filing for divorce." "Jasmine, you're overreacting. You don't have to be so drastic in your decisions. We only lied to you because Mom had nowhere to go," Tom pleaded. "Yes, This is all your fault. You were financially abusing my son by not letting him take me in. We had no other choice than to cook up this story. If you had been a little less selfish, we wouldn't have lied to you. Vera insisted. Don't you dare put this on me. Your worthless son wanted to be a parasite. I accepted because he is my husband and I loved him. Then he expected me to take you in as well. You are not entitled to my money. You had no right to exploit me like this. Vera and Tom turned on me, calling me names and insisting that it was all my fault and they didn't deserve to be kicked out. Tom also said that he was entitled to my money, and so was his mother. All their talk made my blood boil. By the time they were done, I had already made my decision. Enough is enough. I've heard everything I needed to hear. I thought I would kick Vera out and file for separation from you, Tom. But now I'm going for a divorce. You have no right to be my husband. I won't stay with you any longer, and don't even think about taking Ethan. He will stay with me. You can't divorce me, Jasmine. If you leave me, you will have to give me alimony. I will also get half of your savings. I'll keep Ethan and take child support from you. That will teach you a lesson. You have some wild imagination, Tom. First of all, I have already depleted most of my savings on your mother, so you won't have much to claim anyway. Secondly, the judge won't grant you alimony since you quit your job without consulting me. I'll just say that I recorded our entire conversation, so the judge will know you want Ethan's custody only for child support. No, that can't happen. I'll make sure I bleed you dry. Mom and I didn't go through so much drama for nothing. I will take your money. Just you wait, Tom shouted. Tom and Vera kept blowing up at me and threatening me with things. They were so foolish that they forgot the part where I said I had recorded everything. From all the stories I heard, I knew that recording conversations could be crucial in court cases, so I made sure to document everything. After some time, I left them and went to my room. The next day, Tom and Vera tried to act as if nothing had happened. They even started being overly sweet, with Tom attempting to hug me in the morning. I ignored them and went about my day. I met with 2 lawyers to discuss divorce and eviction, and after finalizing everything, I went home. For some odd reason, Vera still used the wheelchair in front of me, and Tom continued the charade, hoping I would be fooled again. I sent Ethan to my sister's house to ensure his safety, as I was concerned that Tom might try to intimidate him. I stayed back because the house was mine, and I didn't want them to ruin it. A week later, I served Tom and Vera with eviction papers. I'd also served Tom divorce papers since there was no way I was staying with them. When they saw the notices, they completely freaked out. Jasmine, how can you do this to us? I don't deserve this treatment from you. This has to be a joke. I can't believe you would kick out a disabled woman. My son only wanted to take care of me. You are punishing him for nothing, Vera cried. I think we've already established that you are not disabled, Vera. There is no point in keeping up this charade. Even if I'm not disabled, I am old. You should not kick out an old person. God is watching. Well, God also saw how the 2 of you manipulated me and bled me dry. Now it's time for me to take my revenge. As for Tom, he has been a poor excuse for a husband and father. I stayed with him for Ethan's sake, but not anymore. Tom and Vera tried several times to change my mind, but I never wavered. I invited my sister over with Ethan so that he could be at home. Tom and Vera became desperate, seeking my forgiveness. I knew that Tom's poor financial decisions had left him with no savings, so hiring a lawyer and fighting me in court would be impossible. Vera didn't work and had no money of her own, so they were both stuck in a deep pit of financial crisis. They feasted on my income, forgetting that I don't take manipulation lightly. Ethan, though a teen, was smart enough to figure out what was going on. He started keeping his distance from Tom and Vera. Their constant shouting didn't help either. They berated him, saying, "You little crap. This is all your fault. I told you to keep your mouth shut. Does it feel good to have your dad kicked out, Ethan? Is this making you happy? Dad and Grandma will be out on the streets while you stay comfortable with your mom. How does that make you feel?" I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want to keep Mum in the dark, so I told her everything. I didn't know she would leave you. Shut up, Ethan. You are nothing but a useless child. I wish I never had you. If I didn't have you, I would remain married and stay in this house. You are responsible for our condition. Stop this right now. You have some audacity to scold and berate Ethan when he did the right thing. How can you speak to your child like that? I was fuming at Tom and Vera's behavior towards Ethan. It broke my heart to see him so scared. I threatened to call the cops if they continued to abuse him, which shut them up quickly. Later, these incidents actually helped me gain full custody of Ethan. Once the month ended, I promptly kicked Tom and Vera out. They threw tantrums until I called the police, who escorted them out of my house. Finally, Ethan and I were able to breathe in our own home. In the weeks that followed, my lawyers tried to convince Tom to sign the divorce papers. I even offered him some money if he agreed. Since he was nearly homeless and had no money, he begrudgingly agreed. I did lose some money, but I see that as a win. The custody agreements were smooth. I got full custody because Tom was in no position to house Ethan. Even if he got a job and demanded split custody, I knew Ethan would speak against him. He was still very shaken and is seeing a therapist. I attend the sessions with him so he doesn't feel alone. My sister is also living with us to help out. We are being cautious in case Tom and Vera try anything. From what I've heard, Tom and Vera had nasty fights after I kicked them out. Tom came crying at my door 2 weeks after being evicted, which is when I convinced him to sign the divorce papers. Apparently, Vera turned on Tom and demanded he get a job to support her. When Tom refused, she threw the worst tantrums ever. According to Tom, this made him realize what an idiot he had been. I didn't feel anything for him. I simply offered the money and asked for his signature. By then, Tom knew there was no coming back. I have no idea where Vera is now, but we are being careful. Meanwhile, Ethan and I are trying to move past this fiasco and start fresh.